All right, this is the 10th? Yeah, it's the 10th already. It's the March 10th meeting of the Zoning Regulation Update Subcommittee for the town of New Canaan, 7 o'clock. Talking about the sweater.
Sweater.
Nice sweater. Anyway, welcome everyone. We have a long agenda, I think, or not, maybe not that long, but yeah. And the stage is yours. Let you guys steer.
I think we all know this, but what's going on a minute. So you said that one would be by zone. So that April 9th one, we need to get ready for workshop.
Sorry, could you just turn on the mic?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There we go.
Might as well turn both of them on.
Yeah. Thanks. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just for
Yeah, it's the
Zoom,
it's
and the
yeah,
recording.
it's- yeah. So we want to get ready for the public workshop on that April 9th meeting. And that workshop we've got down as April 21. So then after the workshop, coming back to the subcommittee meetings, we wanted to meet with you again after the workshop on May 12th. So the idea there is to make any changes that you feel are, appropriate after you've had a chance to hear the public through on the workshop. And then that'll allow us to make changes we need to make those fairly quickly, because I think you want to have 2 weeks of time before the public workshop to get everything online for the public. Otherwise, I think you'll have the public come to the hearing and say, they didn't have a chance to read everything. So that's the ultimate goal, is that hearing, June 2nd. And then that puts you in a position to be able to make any final changes before July 1, because July 1 is our understanding, the date we're all working to get everything done on the commercial end of things. So I did want to talk about the public workshop a little bit. We just talked to Sarah a little bit earlier, that what we had foreseen in that, which we wrote into our scope of work, was the first workshop we see as an opening workshop, sort of an open house, the way we did it. And then the second workshop doing a roundtable after a presentation, going through, particularly with a focus on the commercial zoning. So that you just decide on, we'll cover that both tonight, and then again, any final things on April 9th. We hope to get through. Even if we don't get through everything tonight, we've still got the meeting on, we've still got another meeting with you on April before the workshop. And then go into the workshop, make a presentation. And we think that could be done here, or Sarah, you were thinking also there's possibility of, I guess,
the other community center.
Yeah,
Community
so
center.
I mean, it's really a function of after the presentation, what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Because yes, presentation is better here, but
better here. But after the presentation, our hope was, what's in our scope is to do roundtable discussions. And if we did them here, I think it would work. We'd change the seating around during a coffee. We'd have a coffee break. So we if I outline this to you, Dan, if you started the meeting, say at 7, by the way, we can be whatever time you want, 6:30, 7:30, start the meeting. We can limit our presentation, but I think we need to do the presentation because the public's gotta, even though it's online, some people are going to come not having read it online. And so if we can limit our presentation to about a half an hour, I find people get, a little tired beyond a half an hour listening. But if we can do a half an hour, if we can take a break, say a coffee break, and brownies.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah, because I thought they were very good. But I think we could make it work up here, if we did like 2 tables in here. And then you've got a couple of other rooms up on this floor, if we can use them. What happens at the tables, if we can get like 6 to 8 people to a table, but the tables, we don't want them too close to each other anyway. I find what happens is it gets noisy. But I think you can do nicely in here without a problem, 2 tables. We could do 3 actually. But if we can use other rooms, the idea would be that we would then divide up on those tables. Like I was hoping Sarah and the 3 of us could divide up on tables, but I was hoping that each commissioner could choose a table. I don't think we'll need more than 4 to 6 tables. I'm going by, only about 15 people at the first workshop. I'm hoping we'll get more. I mean, if we don't, the nice thing about that is we do 2 tables in here. But if we get more, I'd like to have backup in the other rooms so that we can accommodate up to maybe 50 people.
How do you envision each of the tables working? Is it going to be a particular topic per table?
I think we can focus in, this is up to you now because we haven't discussed it with you yet. We'll sometimes do tables where all the tables can talk about the whole thing that they've seen, all of the commercial zoning. They're not limited. Sometimes we'll do the tables where you can still talk about everything, but there's going to be, for instance, there'll be, if we want to break out a certain point at that table, state law, for instance, what state law requires. Emily could sit at, from our point of view, Emily could sit at that table. So if you wanted to do explaining the change, and we haven't decided on that yet, is it going to be 1 business zone downtown or maybe 2? What it will be the mapping. I hope we can decide that, of course, before the workshop so that we can, or you'll see later, we could do 2 options on it, but to have a person who's most familiar or most interested in that sit at that table so that we can say there's a resource person from the commission and a resource person from staff at each table. What we ask them to do, usually we'll give them a couple, we sometimes will have a feeling here it might not be necessary, but it's just a icebreaker sort of at the table. When people sit down, they get a little slip of paper that says, here's a couple of questions we'd like you to focus on. And then we tell them at the end of the presentation, we'd like a table to, as the discussion goes along, if they can take notes, if we can have a note taker, and we'll hand out big sheets of paper for that. And then at the end, if they can choose a spokesperson from that table that does not include, preferably does not include any of us, because otherwise, now I have seen, we just ran one of these in
one on Seacliff that we did.
where one of the it was New York, so it was trustees, and the deputy mayor sat at one of the tables, but ended up being the spokesperson for the table because nobody wanted to do it. So in that case, he did it. That was fine. He's such a wonderful guy, actually. He didn't bring to it any particular bias, I think. So, but we like to have a spokesperson from the table. And then when that's decided at the end, we like to spend a good 45 minutes for the tables. I find if you go, they need minimum a half an hour just to get into the discussion. And our experience has been that extra 15 minutes is usually they're focusing then on what they're writing down. And we like to bring those sheets of paper back into this room, say, and then have a spokesperson from that table summarize from their notes. They can look at it. And I think it has worked out fairly well for us in the past. It gets interaction in the table. It has a spokesperson that they decide on at the table, speak to the notes that someone has taken. And then they all hear, everybody hears what everybody's decided at those tables or what their reaction is at those tables. And then you all hear what they say at the end. We, of course, save all that material, write up a meeting record for it so that you've got it And then we're ready, for the next meeting with you to digest all of that at that April, and it will be at the May 12th meeting. And then our real point there is at the May 12th meeting, we have to decide what's going to go on. That gives us a few days after the 12th to get with Sarah the final zoning text that you want to have the public hearing on June 12th, because go back 2 weeks from June 12th, we're into mid-May. So we got to get it up online. But Sarah, I'm not sure of your legal requirements here, but I always try to leave 2 weeks just to be safe.
I have to, I'll double check off the top of my head, but there is a, period of time where it has to be posted with the town clerk's office.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have that off the top of my head.
And what we usually do is just advise if you've got your local press to
Oh, yeah, I mean, we'll have to do public hearing
do a
notices.
yeah. But it should be online, I think, for a certain period of time.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so people know it's online, get publicity out on it, get publicity. We can do the posters for the public hearing for
the
June
public
2nd.
workshop, too.
Public workshop too. We got to do posters for that, get it online. We got to do a sort of.
Yeah, I mean, we should probably start doing that soon. We're only,
Yes.
what,
Yeah, we can
6,
follow up
7
with you
weeks out.
this
We
week
can
with the
follow up,
posters and everything.
and get suggested posters out, that type of thing for publicity on both the workshop and then the public hearing. So the workshop would be very interactive, back and forth, questions and answers and so on. But when you get to the public hearing, I think that one, our experience with the public hearing is, and I defer to you, we usually advise, chair opens it up, you give some rules for the public hearing. Usually, how long can a person speak for? I don't know if you are comfortable with that, but.
Very comfortable with that.
Yeah, so, you have a script and that's it. So people then get up to the mic, they make their comments. It's comments and not a back and forth. It's not question and answer at a public hearing. It's a public hearing. So you're hearing from the public, not yourselves. I don't mean to put it so bluntly that way, but it's not supposed to be it's supposed to be a public hearing that you have I don't know if you have a record of it anyway. You have an audio record.
Yep.
So you probably don't need a stenographer, but that's up to you, how you run your hearings.
We usually have our minute taker.
Yeah. And then the idea is after that hearing, we would meet with you again to make
A different date.
Yeah.
The full planning and zoning
The full
commission on
planning
June
and
4th.
zoning,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
To debrief the public
To,
hearing.
to,
That public hearing, in our experience, and the last time we did this, last year, it's a coin toss as to how many people are going to show up for that, right? Could be 5 people, could be 50 people.
Yeah.
So, but that's all we're going to do is just take whatever public comment there is and
Right.
wrap it up.
And I think you do have to be prepared, but it sounds like you're used to it. From what I heard, you stayed till 11:30 last night or 11, whatever it was. It could be relatively short if there's only 5 or 6 people. I expect more, but you got a map change downtown. You're in the downtown, you probably have more, but if you can do it in one night, that would be ideal. Otherwise,
So we're doing it in one
Yeah.
night.
yeah.
That's
you're
not a
right.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only question is what time we go to bed.
That night, yeah, right.
I would expect, sorry, put my mic on. I would expect we may get more people than we did the last time we did this, simply because we're talking about downtown. You're going to get Chamber of Commerce involved, a number of businesses.
Yeah.
So
I
would
hope
be
we
surprised if
will.
We don't.
Yeah.
I do think also, depending on how we advertise it, and we can talk about this now or, at the next subcommittee meeting, but if we not sensationalize the fact that this is, partially mandated by the housing bill stuff, if we use that to our advantage, we would probably get more people attending if we,
In what way? What do you mean?
like, if we made it clear that the subject of the, not quite fear mongering, but just trying to put a positive spin on it.
I wouldn't go that far. You're translating for there.
No, I don't.
Held as we are by changes in
Thanks,
state
Krista.
law.
But just like, if you want to learn about state mandates that our arms are being twisted on, come to this meeting.
I like that term mandate. It's very formal and
Yeah.
neutral and true. This is a state
We
mandate.
could put a description, a
Yeah.
blurb on the poster.
On the poster?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. And we can go back and forth with Sarah on this, whatever you want in terms of, publicity. I think getting what you can in the local press too.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Just,
Mhm.
and even, by the way, I always find too, if you can get an article, what happens there is, what we found is the best way to get it in the press.
Yeah,
is to just write it for them.
We definitely can get an article.
We
And-
can write the press release.
Yeah,
for
I
you.
mean, if you want, then give Sarah, it should
Yeah.
come from you, but.
Yeah.
So we can write that, because I think given our experience with the press today, which they don't have the staff they used to have locally, and if you give them a write-up, they'll use it. They might edit it, but they'll use it.
Half of them are using AI to write their articles, so.
So that is what we're thinking about, for the workshop, because the workshop will be very interactive and followed by it with public hearing, which is comments.
Mhm.
And then a meeting after that hearing to make any last minute changes so that you're able to make the July 1
Yep.
Adoption. You're in good stead there.
Do we want to jump into the regs since
Yes.
public hearing's not
Let's
going to
do it.
work?
So
Yeah.
with that, I'm going to turn it to Emily, and Emily, I think you're going to start on 2A, right?
Yes.
2A and B.
So I guess the first thing that we're gonna talk about is in the business zone. Sorry, I'm looking for it.
You can pull up the red line
Yeah,
version.
the red line
business
version
zone.
of the business zone regulations that you have.
Yes, ma'am.
We just wanted to highlight a couple of things where we incorporated in the transit community middle housing requirement. So since we last talked about this, I think the Council of Governments has kind of changed their view, and I think the legal counsel has also advised that the wording of the new state law should include transit community middle housing development, which are developments of 2 to 9 units in retail zones. So we have incorporated those into the uses permitted. Our interpretation is that this can be permitted with site plan approval. It can't have a public hearing tied to it, but it can have a general site plan approval that makes sure that it's compliant with zoning. And then you'll also see in here, there's a note on that use, number 14, where we add a little bit here that transit community middle housing development shall be permitted by summary review. So summary review is how the state has defined that kind of like site plan approval, where it's not like necessarily like as of right, they're not like as specific. So we're going to include a definition of what summary review is in the zoning regulations as well.
Can I ask a question on that? Why don't we just call it site plan review? I know that's what the state used in their.
So I had Bertram Moses, give us a formal interpretation, and their advisement is that we have a definition for summary review and we can reference site plan approval, but they are slightly different in that summary review specifically, they're taking the 830G language of public health and safety, and that doesn't exist in site plan.
Oh.
So it's like, we can still use the site plan mechanism, but it's a little
Okay.
different.
I thought it was
It's not exactly
identical.
the same, no.
So we included
a definition in
Yeah.
there's a packet of proposed definitions.
But This is
You know what I-
required by new state law.
Yes, so this was
Yes.
based on the
Yeah.
interpretation that we got for your legal counsel. The one thing that I will note, though, is that the conditions that are here are not mandated by state law. These are ones that Sarah and we came up with based on what we've heard from you all, the priorities, but they're very much open to discussion. And, the only thing that's required is that it's up to 9 units, but the floor area and the affordability are not part of that.
So basically what we did was, if you do mixed use, which has the retail component we want, the units can be bigger, the setbacks are what, we want them to be in the commercial zone. But if you don't, and you do this transit community development, units are smaller, setbacks are more restrictive, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so you'll see in here, there's a few of those conditions. So the unit size that we settled on and can be discussed here further is a 750 square feet as a maximum unit size. We still can't do minimum unit sizes. And also requiring that they provide an affordable unit that's compliant with Section 830G, and that there's a maximum of 9 units per property, which is also part of the definition for transit community middle housing. And then later on in this packet, we have
In the business zone, there's also different requirements.
okay,
Footnote 16.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The business
So
zone is
in the
slightly
business
different.
zone allows for a little bit larger maximum unit size, but it also requires that at least one of the units is compliant with Section 830G for affordability and has the maximum 9 residential units. We've also included some provisions in the area and bulk and dimensional requirements. So on page, is this for the business zone or
This is for all.
okay, so
Yeah.
for all of the zones, on page 11, following the area and bulk table, you'll see that we have, and also on the area and bulk table, you'll see we've added a column for transit community middle housing. And the idea here is, as Sarah was saying, to kind of have tighter parameters on the transit community middle housing to kind of promote other options for housing like mixed use instead. And so some of the things we talked about here are having a further front yard setback, minimum side yard setbacks, and rear yard setbacks that are larger than they would be with a different use.
And there's no problem in terms of compliance with state law with these additional.
That's kind of not certain.
Yeah, we would
Um,
defer to that yet.
I think it could be
Yeah, not
challenged,
yet.
but
We're allowed to set, dimensional requirements. The law does not preclude us from doing that. So,
Okay.
I mean, I have not yet run this by Birch and Moses. This was just draft 1. And if you guys had comments, then after that, we'll send it
I mean,
to
that's
Birch and
my
Moses,
question
but-
is the more prescriptive of these,
Yeah.
Yeah.
front yards, height, rear yards, is that in compliance or is that run afoul of? Obviously, it's too new to know. You
Yeah.
haven't made its way through
Yeah.
the course, but like,
That's why we tried to be reasonable. In other words, a front yard requirement of 15 feet, for say residential. I think we see that in other places, in other downtowns. And the 10 feet side yard is actually the same. That one we didn't, it's the same as business zone. And then where we increased it is, we think it's reasonable to, where you have residents are up to 9 units or so, you have a rear yard, you have a backyard, a rear yard that really, could function as a place you could have you could have fire. Well, first, it's much safer for fire access.
Mm.
You can have residents in there now. So I think we can do, if this got to a court case, I think these are comfortable to defend. I can't tell you who would win that. I don't know. There's just no experience.
Yeah, I mean,
I get the
Yeah.
objective. I just wanted to make sure that it was,
Yeah, all of
we weren't pinching everybody to, prescribe our own objectives, but.
Yeah.
How do we define where transit community middle housing can occur?
So it has to occur in any commercial zone as per any area that's zoned for commercial or mixed use as per the state statute.
so you'll see on the previous pages, we had the use tables for the retail zone, and then so the retail zone is on page 3. So it's listed as a permitted use there now. And then for the business zone is on page 7. It's also listed as a permitted use.
And then page 11, that's something that is sort of one way in which you can also promote the type of development that you think is compatible with those zones. So through discussions with Sarah, these are some requirements that would be mandated specifically for the transit community middle housing. So the first one for discussion is about the coverage. So we talked about either having a maximum building coverage that is the same as the residence zones or use a maximum FAR. That's one option for us to discuss. Other items are that You know, you have that larger 15-foot front yard setback that we're proposing. And so a minimum of 70% of that would be landscaped. That no off-street parking could be in that front yard, and driveways providing access to the parking located to the side or the rear may cross the front yard perpendicular to the street, but should be minimized. And then requirements about trees, shade trees, one for every 40 feet of frontage. And then in the business zone, existing structures that don't comply with the requirements can be converted into transit community middle housing use, so long as no physical expansion of the structure is permitted. And they would still have that max, they would still have the other
Their maximum
Non-conform-
coverage or
yeah.
maximum FAR, right?
they would still have the maximum of 9 units, sorry, is
Oh,
what I meant,
right,
yeah.
yep.
So they couldn't take like an old office building and make it into 25 units or something like that. It'd still be the maximum of 9 units.
It came up last night, a little bit of irony. An applicant who said, I want to build this building, parking will be in the front, 14 spots, 14 units, you know, and we said, can you move the parking to the back yard, back of the building? And he said, no, because of the setbacks and the, you know, it'd be hard to run asphalt along the side of the building, get all the cars in the back. We said, well, it would be our preference to get the cars off the streetscape.
Mhm.
And I'm only pointing out that that's the kind of reform I'd like to see, because right now we don't really show that preference in our regs.
Mhm.
And he's right to come here and say, what's the difference?
Mhm.
To us, there's a difference,
Mhm.
but we don't have that in our regs, that we would really prefer you put the cars in the back, even at the expense of maybe play space. One of the, one of us said, oh, do you have any play space?
Larson.
Well, that's not food, but, if play space is important to us, it's also, again, not in the regs.
Hmm.
So just
That-
want to make that point. You maybe make that note. If there's a,
But I think that's been covered here with a 25-foot backyard setback.
Yeah, we have a 25,
Forcing- I mean, I guess you're not forcing a place structure, but you're forcing
yeah,
Some yard space.
yard
Mhm.
Yeah.
space.
You get there.
space in the back the other thing is side yard, that you gotta, but if you had a side yard enforced, the 10 feet is tight. We could do 12, but the 10 is, the driveway in the back has to be at least 9 feet wide, so he's right.
he said 20. He
Well, that
said,
was
"I can't
for-
put parking in the back because
For residential, it might
marshal.
be different,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
We really shouldn't be talking about an open application right now.
That's why I didn't want to, I don't want to get into the specifics
Yeah.
of what I wanted to say, that our regs should reflect our
That
preference.
application is
preference.
also not following our regs, so it wouldn't matter what our regs say in that case.
but it's a point, I mean, if you wanted to make this, by the way, to answer that question is, sir, our traffic guy says, and George Giacomo, sorry, our partner, we've been through this through a lot of communities, that you don't need two-way driveway for this few units. I mean, you're limited to 9 units, so it can work, but you need 10 to 12 feet. We picked the minimum. Could be 12, I mean, if you wanted it to be.
I mean, so the thinking was, at least try to somewhat model it after B-res, where we allow 2 families right now.
Mhm.
So there's at least a correlation, and it's not like we're pulling these regulations out of a hat. B-res is 8 feet, so I don't know if 12 is appropriate. Like 10 is at least closer.
Cars are bigger now,
to-
Sarah.
10's bigger. The 10's better. 8 is way too small.
I
You ever
couldn't
try
drive
to
my
park in
Tahoe down
the
that driveway,
railway lot?
but I would try if you want.
So 10. Just leave it at 10.
Okay, yeah.
And just with that, I'm guessing commissioners aren't going to have, finalized comments right now. So I don't know if, while we're
I
thinking
don't
about
have
it.
any issues with any of these, but I am curious what the recommendation is on number 1, whether we
Hmm.
go with residential zone, maximum car from the business zone.
If, it's residential, we should regulate it the way we already regulate residential properties.
We can also, we did this at one point when we jumped ahead a little bit, but we have some like sample lot sizes and how the coverage calculations will work out with those lot sizes. So you could, I guess, test whether or not there's, on an average lot size, enough space for those setbacks that you're proposing, and parking. So we could do a table that shows what the residence zone building coverages would be with some sample lot sizes in the retail and business zones that would possibly be eligible for this.
That would be good.
That'd be helpful.
Sarah, though, you were saying too, you want to be somewhat consistent with the way you're doing it now.
Yeah.
Which I presume is FAR, or is it covered?
No, I mean, we don't have FAR in the residential
Have
zones.
FAR in
Yeah,
the residential at all.
and coverage.
And height.
Yeah.
So if you want.
It's so Greenwich.
Pardon me?
Greenwich.
To have FAR.
If you wanted to stay consistent, you'd go more coverage.
But which zone? are
So we don't go by zone, it's all by lot size.
Which is,
So
which
it
is
would,
good
it would
for
be
this.
consistent,
Right,
you know?
okay, got it. So we don't have to say consistent with the B res zone or the whatever,
Mhm.
it's just.
It's based on lot
Yeah.
size, yeah.
And it works well.
Yeah.
You know, those coverage rules that we have, they work well from what we see. People disagree.
I mean, that would be fine with us. I mean, that makes sense.
So
By
one
the way,
other, or sorry, I was just gonna say one other thing that I think we kind of skipped over in the transit community middle housing on the page 10 with the building height. It's listed as 35 feet. That is the maximum building height for B-res right now.
Mhm.
I bring that up because we still have retail and business as a maximum of 30 feet for 2.5 stories. I just want to put on the record, I don't think 30 feet is realistic for a commercial zone. I really think it should be 35 feet across the board.
I agree.
So many buildings in both zones are taller than 30 feet.
I also don't think residential should be taller than.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I mean, we do also, I mean, we agree completely, but
President?
John's raising his hand. Like he's.
Oh, I didn't see his hand.
Go ahead, John.
I'm fascinated by this building height. I can think of an application, you don't have to name names, but I can think of an application from a couple of years ago where the applicant said, my building is, pick a number, 40 feet. And I said, but your building's 50 feet because of all the equipment on top. And he said, yeah, that doesn't count. And so I wanted to understand, is that a state reg? Is that is that true? All his air conditioning equipment does not count.
Locally, it's
We
your
have-
definition. of
We
what
already
can
have
go.
something in our regulations that basically says you get 10 extra feet for rooftop appurtenance.
So are we saying 35
Ordinances.
plus 10?
I love that word.
That's what your regs are, that's what it would be,
Appurtenances?
yeah.
HVAC equipment, stairwell housing, elevator shafts, air conditioning units, cooling towers, heat pumps, or similar mechanical equipment.
But so my question
about
is,
window
if it's current, are we currently contemplating 35 plus 10?
Yes, would be the answer.
Yeah.
And that's what it is now and will be.
Yes, not project more than, or so it can't be more than 20% of the total roof area, and it
Yeah,
has to
that's
be
the key.
screened on all sides by a solid appearing wall constructed of materials.
Does it have setback requirements?
It does not, I guess.
I just wonder if there's a way we could offer a benefit to those people who could
Within-
actually
sorry, within 10
eliminate it or hide it or get rid of it or put it somewhere else,
Can't be within 10 feet.
you know? A way to use this part of the reg to incent a better looking structure.
Two key things that Sarah just went over though is that extra 10 feet for mechanicals is limited to no more than 20% of the rooftop.
And it has to be
footage.
10 feet from any
It has to
building
be
edge.
10 feet, right? It's a 10-foot setback. And I think that's effective because what we find, we must have spent hours on this and with form-based when we're setting back for in their case, it was the 4-story, and I'm not suggesting anything like that, but you set back 10 feet and you are shielding that view. We went through where the view sheds are, but your view from the sidewalk, you're not going to see that. Now, your view from across the street, you will see it, but I think your regs are pretty good.
Sarah, can you explain? So what's the difference between 35 feet of total building height and 35 feet of building height?
Oh, God.
And
So-
why yeah.
Because
Median grade.
Midpoint is what
midpoint
used.
of the primary roof roof structure is typically building height. Top or ridge of the roof is total building height.
So basically, if you have a flat roof building, you're capped at 30 feet.
Right.
And you get 5 feet of peak, basically.
Yeah.
This
Basically.
is, I put on the screen just so you have it. This is your zoning code's definition of building height.
This is something we didn't
That
change.
doesn't help me.
We're-
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. How's
You
that?
didn't bring your
Well, maybe-
telescope?
I can see that.
Good. This is like an eye test.
Yeah.
H-E.
Read it out loud.
Height building, vertical
ZB.
distance from the average grade
So I think
for
there
a
are-
building.
Actually, if you
or
scroll down,
other-
there are pictures that people can
Right,
just.
okay, yeah,
Oh, there
that's
we go.
easier, yeah.
Pictures.
pictures.
There it is.
How do we treat dormers? We ignore those?
We ignore those.
Dormers are a whole other
Probably not about the
animal.
original.
Sorry, didn't mean to.
Building height, so-
But as Frank said, we're not suggesting changing
We're not
this.
suggesting any changes in between height, total building height, midpoint height, or dormers. Not, you're accepting your existing regulations
Would not
because we,
change that at all.
you are used to them, yeah.
Let the sleeping dog lie.
Yeah.
As long as
Okay.
Sarah understands it.
But on Sarah's question, is there a consensus to go to
35 feet.
a height
I'm
of
good with 35.
35 feet?
If they're
rather
both
than-
35 total building height or 35 building height?
35
net.
total building height and 30 feet building height.
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we talking about in the retail zone and business zone or just for transit community middle housing right now?
So right now, 35 feet is already recommended for transit community. So I'm saying 35 feet
business.
for retail and
Retail and
business. Which we should clarify that needs to say max total building height, not max building height, because that's,
Sorry, what's again?
Okay.
35
Building
feet
height.
of total building height and
Yes.
30 feet of building
Yes.
height? Okay.
We can have two different lines on there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And is 2.5 stories good or do 3?
Well, so we have an extra story bump if you do inclusionary zoning. So I guess I would,
Up to a max of 3.5?
yeah.
Okay.
What's the definition of a half story?
We have a whole definition. If you want to get into it right now, we can.
We have not changed that.
Okay.
But there's like a very specific definition.
Like an attic? Like what-
Yeah,
like-
it's basically an attic. It can't be a basement. It's only
You
an
can
attic.
walk around in 60% of it.
50% if
The
there
other
are no
50 you bonk your
dormers.
head and-
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. And-
Yeah.
The one thing, Sarah, that you did mention to us before is that the area and bulk exceptions, the bonuses for inclusionary zoning would not apply to transit community middle housing. So that's something to consider as well.
And so what I was thinking for that is, it's between 2 and 9 units. So our inclusionary zoning gets triggered at 4 units or 5 units. And, then there are density bonuses and whatnot. And I just think that regulatorily speaking, that is so complicated.
It is too complicated.
So it's just, if you are doing this transit oriented, community, middle housing, or whatever it's called, you follow these sets of regs. Inclusionary zoning does not apply to you, except we do say if you're between 5 and 9 units, you have to include one inclusionary affordable unit. But no bonuses, no anything like that, because it just gets so confusing.
Does that also mean because we've done those partials, we have to write a check for partial units that would not apply to this?
Correct. Because it's if you're 4 or less, no affordable unit. If you're 5 or 9, you're providing one.
One unit and that's it.
Yeah, that's in the conditions here.
Yeah.
There's no fee in lieu option. It's just you're providing one if you're doing it.
And that only applies to this type of development.
Transit, community, middle housing.
Everything else falls under the other rules. Yes.
This is also the only one that's pure residential. The other ones are
Are we gonna talk about it?
mixed use, yeah.
I'll look up
Yeah.
Housing
this
is
is-
just residential.
And again, this is property specific, right? Going back to our frat bros on Richmond Hill, those are 2 different properties.
Correct, but that doesn't
Even there,
apply
even-
because it's not a commercial zone.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
But if it were a commercial zone, if it was developer 2 adjacent properties,
They could do 18 units between those 2 sites, basically, because 9 and 9.
you do 9 and 9.
While we're on transit community middle housing development, I know we're not on the definitions, but in the definition of it, I think you need to clarify that this can only happen in the retail and commercial zone.
Mhm.
I think usually, so the use tables are the ones that determine where the I guess where in what zones they're permitted, where their principal permitted use, but you can include it if that's useful. I don't know.
It's fast. The other thought I had is, should we cite where this came from? Meaning like house, I don't know if we call it House Bill 8002, or if it was codified in the statutes, CGS, blah, blah, blah.
It's
But
now in the
but some
statutes.
ways so that we know that if it gets overturned in the future, this is a section that we no longer, like, this was created specifically because of something done at the legislature, and therefore if that changes going forward, you know, this
Yep.
doesn't really matter anymore. I don't know.
I mean, we don't do that often, technically everything is enabled
But do
by
we
a
think this is
certain.
gonna, I mean, I don't know. There's just so much movement at the state level that I'm like, is this gonna last?
How about in compliance with a blah, blah, blah? We're
Well, I
just
guess-
citing a fact.
The one thing is that if this changes and let's say it becomes more permissive, you might want to evaluate it again
Again.
before
change-
you just say that now this applies. For instance, let's say, I have no indication that this would happen, but if they said transit community middle housing is now 2 to 12 units, and in your code you say, whatever it says in the general statute, and then that would then apply whatever the new House bill definition is, as opposed to what your current definition is.
One
So, I
thing I
mean-
think for sure, you'll know about
It's a
any
slippery
change.
slope because
Yeah.
then that just opens the door to whatever the state comes up with
Exactly,
that particular
yeah.
month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're safe in just waiting to see what they do. You're
Right.
definitely gonna know about it because
Oh, yeah.
that'll be front page.
Do these units qualify for Hugh points? I remember there was that middle housing.
I believe they do. Yep, so we get a quarter of a point
What of a Hugh point per unit?
per market rate unit, I guess. A little bit more.
Something.
Cited on coverage.
Yep.
I know we
covered.
discussed that. I wasn't sure whether this falls into
John's
that
hand
bucket
is
or
up.
not. What?
John's
Other
hand is
John.
up.
Oh, the other John, sorry.
So I was wondering about the height exception and height exceptions for rooftop for the cell towers, because recently come up, I think that Verizon is aggressively trying to put these barrel-shaped
Yeah.
structures in the downtown. And so if that's beginning with one of these companies, I wonder, do our rules anticipate that is a rooftop appurtenance, or is that a structure? Because I see public utility facilities is Verizon cell tower barrel, a public utility facility. So I just wonder specifically about cell coverage, since it's a hot button issue.
We've seen them do both, some things on the street and sharing. They like to share. On rooftops, and you have both. We haven't made any changes. We haven't made any changes.
But what definition do they fall under? Because private buildings are leasing space for antennas, or
Yeah.
they're on the public utility poles. And depending on how we write this, Verizon might be encouraged to put them on buildings or put them on poles.
So I would probably just clarify that it includes cell and,
Public
cell
utilities, yeah.
infrastructure on top of buildings, because I think about like the Locust Ave buildings. They have them on there.
So are we too.
So then it would just stay that, it can't project more than 10 feet above the existing.
Are we saying that, or are we saying 50 feet above grade?
I would say, like, again, using Locust Ave as the example, I would probably just do 10 feet above, the existing building height, just because I don't know how tall Locust Ave building is. Is it more than 50 feet?
It's probably right around.
You're
50
talking about
feet,
the
but-
Moran towing building that
Yeah.
has so many antennas.
Yes.
Well, yeah,
Not the hotel that's
No, the hotel.
proposing to go up and put more on, but shield them, which is a little bit lower,
Yeah.
to your point,
Yeah.
than Moran towing across the street.
So we would,
I'll be honest, at least I don't think we've looked at it. We have looked at it in other communities, but we hadn't planned on any changes to that. But you're saying we should look at that, or
That you've never seen a community more intense about their cell towers than this one. And that we should make sure that we define it, what we want.
did I understand correctly? You'd want to add cell infrastructure to this list so that they would have to comply with these? Is that?
That's my recommendation. I don't know if.
That's the proposal. So what's currently here with,
Struggling to find the correct metric. Are we 10 feet above the roof line, and are we 10 feet above a mechanical penthouse? you know, they could argue that the main roof line is the top of the mechanical penthouse, so they can be 10 feet higher than that.
Personally, I don't think they could from this definition because this is specifically talking about mechanical equipment. So if we throw that in there, saying 10 feet on top, like, you know, I don't see how you could then extrapolate, oh,
You're looking at 4.5?
no, I'm looking at
4.5A.
But,
5A, yeah.
okay. I am
we were looking
I'm
at this one.
45B. Sorry, guys.
4.5A or B, where are we?
B what?
2
Four,
rooftop appurtenance.
4.5.
The
It's on the screen
appurtenances?
right now. Yeah,
B or B? Where are we?
45B2.
you're talking about this.
Page 12.
Oh, no, but here,
Really want-
this is a new, this was in the zoning code, this is something else.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
10 feet of the edge shall not project more than 10 feet in vertical above the actual roof level of the building. So then I would agree with that in terms of equipment, housings, shafts, and mechanical equipment. Well, mechanical equipment and mechanical penthouses. We need to add that,
Similar mechanical equipment and penthouses.
correct?
Okay.
All such appurtenances shall be screened, no more than 10 feet in vertical height above the actual roof level of the above the actual primary roof level of the building. Because someone will argue, well, the penthouse has a roof.
At the actual,
Primary.
primary roof level. And do you want it to include cell as one of those listed uses that would have to comply?
Cellular transmission equipment.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So then does that mean we're getting rid of 45A4?
4, 5, A, 4,
4, 5.
which may be built to a height, well,
Like what other public utility facilities are we talking about?
Like,
I don't know if street poles,
I don't know.
I don't think they fall under zoning.
Nothing under zoning for that.
Yeah,
So, that's all I can think of. Facilities.
Well, if you have a 35-foot building and then add 10 feet of stuff, now you're at 45.
But for only 20% of the coverage of the roof and you're you set back 10 feet. Those two things make a difference in visual.
I'd say get rid of number 4, and then if it comes up that we needed a, you know, some utility company.
That's a
Deal with that.
legacy line item in there from
Yeah.
the current code.
Oh, yeah.
Sarah, where are you there? What section?
Wonder if it was
A4.
5A.
A4.
Main and Cherry.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things on it.
I know, but then it's a telecom building. I wonder if someone threw that in there way back when to cover us on that
Is
building.
any
Okay.
public utilities besides this?
Okay, right. So we get rid of that. Yeah. So
Okay.
that will further restrict. Okay.
I know I have some just like very minutia like language things that I can email to you all that just gets into the nitpicking of enforcement stuff. I assume other commissioners may as well.
only this one.
Enforcement, which document?
So I'm just talking about the business zone. I don't want to,
Yeah.
I don't want to
need
go
do
through
that.
them line by line now.
I have a couple of more substantive
Okay.
questions that I just want to make sure we're okay.
Yeah, But so I just want to, before we move on too far, if there are comments, like, you know, they should be emailed to me soon. I don't know if we want to set a date of when everyone should get their comments to me by, so then I can decipher them and then send them to BFJ.
I have questions too.
I mean, yeah, I have a
I'll be
bunch.
raising my hand after she's done.
So, I mean, is
You're raising
your hand for the future now?
Uses.
Do you just want like a little
Putting
stick
it out
sign
there.
with a hand so you don't have to
We
keep?
do, we need that. Like a WebEx
Preemptive
hand.
retaliatory strike here.
Getting comments to Sarah within 2 weeks be reasonable or?
Oh, yeah.
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 That
So by the 24th.
would get them to us then.
I better do it sooner. I'll just forget.
Just a question before we go on, I think we've decided now on, Sarah, I think you're recommending that, not, rather than floor area, we would keep coverage.
That is my
Right,
recommendation.
and I think you were comfortable with that.
Sorry, repeat
The
that?
middle housing, how we regulate the size of the structures. The question is, do we use FAR or do we use the residential zone building coverage?
Sarah was saying that to be consistent,
I
you
think,
would use coverage. And by the way, coverage and height are the two key variables that give you FAR. So
I mean, we don't use FAR anywhere else.
Other than the business zones,
Yeah.
but
I would prefer to be clean, like we either do it or we don't do it.
and I mean,
Let's not
it's meant
do
to
it.
be just solely residential structures, so let's regulate it the same way we regulate just residential structures everywhere else in town. I understand it's multifamily instead of single family, but there's supposed to be small scale.
And
Density
it
regulations.
will be more restrictive than,
Sarah, the only question I have on business zone, in the business zones, you could have a mixed use building,
So that doesn't apply, because this is again, only transit
only transit.
community.
Okay,
They would
so
use
only-
FAR.
So use for any mixed use building, they'd use FAR.
Yeah.
Okay. And for a pure residential building, you're saying keep it.
Yeah.
and the transit community middle housing criteria, if we're going by the area and the setback and height requirements, it's more restrictive than anything else in the business zone.
Yeah. So I would say just for flow of the regulations, I would, instead of having number 1 for the following area and bulk requirements shall apply to transit community middle housing, I would consider maybe where it says max floor area ratio, maybe referencing the residential zone coverage section, like C section, whatever of the zoning regulations for coverage requirements.
Instead of line item 1.
Yeah. Because you don't want them, if we leave it blank, you don't want them to assume
There's none.
that there is none.
Absolutely, yeah. All right.
I know that
Okay.
some other people had comments.
Yeah, no, I know Krista has.
Are we ready do you want me to make my comments or do you have more?
Go for it.
Wait,
No.
John's got his hand up.
John's hand. All right, last time we talked about providing some sort of path for non-conforming buildings in the business C zone, and I didn't see that in here.
Yes, that is item D, for us to discuss further. Yeah.
Only on item A.
Well, we're kind of also doing item E, right? 'Cause
Yeah,
we're
we
doing
are.
the red line.
We have that ready to discuss.
Just wanted to make sure it
We'll
wasn't.
be
Yeah,
ready
yep,
in
yep.
momentarily, yeah.
All right, other things that I think require discussion, not just a comment. On the area and dimensional requirements table,
Which page?
10. Page 10, section 4.4. We had quite a long section in our existing regulations, and obviously well, maybe not obvious. I am a big fan of condensing it as much as we can. I just want to make sure we don't lose anything that's important. And so here are a few things that I thought might be important, but I'll let you guys decide. In our existing regulations, we have a minimum building height in the business B zone of 20 feet or 2 stories. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we don't want to see 1-story development in the business B zone. I'm not sure exactly where that came from, but it's not here. And I just wondered if that
Yeah,
was
that's true.
something we want to
Yep.
continue forward with.
We have 1 or 2 in the zone, in the retail zone.
You're talking about business
But I'm
zone?
talking about business B.
Like Sheila La, the very old building by the bank. I think it's 1 story.
Business zone or 2 business zones.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, that would be another question is how does that does that
Yeah.
translate to the full
Yeah.
business zone? Because, that's more auto-oriented development probably does tend to be 1 story.
Mhm.
So maybe it's, like I said, an issue from a bygone era, but I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
that was considered and we disposed of it accordingly as opposed to just forgetting. it.
Was that from just business B?
Yeah.
Okay.
Business
Yeah, so I
B,
think that's why we
Yeah.
tried to look for commonality between them when we were combining it.
Okay. But I think,
Keeping it in there.
History of it here, I don't know if you do.
I mean,
Sarah, but-
business B is a newer zone.
Mm.
So.
wait, is that the one for
that's
Cross and
Cross and
DD?
DD. So,
So we wanted a minimum building.
Yeah.
of 2 stories in Cross and DD area.
I mean, if you do, and then that gets into a conversation we haven't had yet that we need to have tonight. If you're going to require that, you need to require more FAR, or else you're gonna end up with
Tiny,
tiny buildings.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna end up with a massive parking lot, because what else are you gonna do with the space?
there are some uses, that could potentially be, you know, 1-story thing that are special permit, things like in the business zone table, things like gas stations, automotive services, car dealerships.
Zoom box is 1 story. I don't think anyone thinks that that's a bad development.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a strong feeling one
Yeah.
way or another. I just wanted us to have the conversation and make sure if we're getting rid of it, that,
That's what we've done now,
yeah,
not consciously, but,
yeah.
um,
Okay.
but I don't see.
So
it.
we haven't seen a reason to continue it. Does anyone here feel like there's a reason to continue with a minimum building?
think so.
2
No.
stories.
I don't think so.
Okay. So there was a whole part where there was, it's in our existing regulations, 4.8L of the minimum or maximum floor area ratio. And on here we have a maximum floor area ratio, but there's also then a separate column for maximum floor area ratio if you have underground parking. And I just wonder if we're disincentivizing underground parking, which I would think from a policy perspective is something we would like to see if people have the money to provide it, by not providing a different FAR if you have underground parking.
What we have done in other codes is just not include underground parking in the FAR.
Shouldn't, yeah.
Okay.
Most basement levels are not included.
Sellers are not counted. towards
That's what
cellar.
we have done in other codes. I don't know the history here, Sarah, but
But I guess, I mean, what you're saying is in theory, like you're getting it in addition to it not counting, because I think it already doesn't count, but you get a bigger building
Right.
if you provide the parking underground.
But then
is
what's
what
the,
it's saying.
but if the purposes of providing parking underground is to, I'm just trying to think,
Yeah.
increase lot coverage, is it, put more plantings, right? Like
I think it's so we don't have to see your parking.
I think that's what it is my guess.
I don't like.
so we're gonna give you a bigger building because you put your parking
Yeah.
below.
Yeah, and it's very expensive to put parking underground.
Right.
that's what we've usually done, is just not included it in FAR. We have not included underground parking in FAR.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of communities do that. It's an easy one, it's clear, but I think
It's a floor area
that's not
exemption.
the way
I
it's.
think we need
so it's
to
not a-
talk about floor area ratio, big picture first,
Okay.
and then come back to that,
Okay.
because we haven't even, decided on.
But we'll
Just a
mark that
general-
to come back to,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Last one that I had that felt like maybe a conversation is under our existing 4.8H, which is maximum building height, and it goes through each zone and basically says the maximum building height is 30 feet or 2.5 stories, but then there's basically a whole page of exemptions for that by special permit, which we can't do, right? Is that why we took that out? We can't do
Is
height.
that here, the special provisions here? or-
This one here.
4.8.
Oh.
H.
Special permit in retail B zone, maximum building height may be increased above 30 feet and up to 3 stories, provided commission shall make affirmative findings.
Oh, so those
were all
wait.
created by applicants that
Yeah.
obviously had an interest in doing this. I'm not.
So 1 and 2 were done before we had inclusionary zoning regulations and before you got a height bump. For building housing, same with 3.
Okay.
And then I think 4 is what got added for the hotel. Or is that not in that section? Okay, yeah, never mind. Yeah, okay. But yeah, so those were,
Yeah.
those were for like all the Forest Street developments, because inclusionary zoning didn't exist then.
Is that when everybody wrote their own special permit?
Yep.
Here are the height exceptions for structures that were specifically located to items that we felt were important, but we can also add any of these back into this section if that's useful.
So if we're taking out all those special permits that people got pursuant to regulations that we're now getting rid of, what's the mechanism for them to modify special permits if they need to in the future? Right, I have
Have
a
a prior
4.8.
non-conforming building.
Yeah, so
Yeah, but
I mean,
that's-
it's now a
that's not as fun.
non-conforming building. I mean, you could put in simpler language that, says something like, housing developments in these zones built before the
Yeah.
inclusionary zoning regulation or
I think
are
you need to do
permitted.
that. I
Yeah.
think you need to do some sort of catch-all that anything based on date of adoption
Yeah.
that you're allowed to modify and that you are not a non-conforming structure.
Forming section, doesn't it cover that? If you've had like a pre-existing
So-
structure for 3 years, then you can keep that FAR. It's not by height, it's by FAR.
But I think, can you give an example of like what you mean by modifying a special permit? Like,
If you wanted to, I don't know, like if it was a bulk regulation that you wanted to now, increase the height or say like, change from a mix, it's an all commercial building and you want to make it half, residential and half, or like, residential upper floors, commercial lower floors. Right, like I don't know if those are in. I've looked at the conforming regs to say like, okay, just go look at the non-conforming regs, and you can use that as your vehicle to get something done. Or
so unfortunately, with non-conforming structures, you want to change something that usually just goes straight to ZBA, regardless of what our
Right.
regulations say, because non-conforming structures are governed by ZBA, not by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
so then you have because you have a building subject to a special permit, right? So that's your zoning, is the special permit zone.
Yeah.
And then now we're saying, well, that goes away, and now you become a non-conforming, and you therefore don't have the ability to come to us and modify that special permit. You have to go to ZBA. That seems like a negative to
Yeah, no, I hear the point.
building owner. So maybe is there a catch-all for, parties that receive special permits under these sections can modify those special permits.
Or we could just say are
grandfathered.
grandfathered in and are not considered non-conforming structures,
Yeah, the item D about the special exception for adaptive reuse talks about that, or we've had those conversations a little bit, but I have up here now the non-conforming structure section. It says any non-conforming structure lawfully existing at the time of adoption of these regulations or any amendments hereto may be continued as a non-conforming structure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not concerned about the continuance. I'm concerned about the modification.
The amendment of that special permit, yeah.
and I mean,
Or if there's no special permit, how do you modify, right? Under these, it's very strict to modify a non-conforming building. Right, it's harder than if you were, say, pursuant to a special permit.
and I mean, number 3 here that says a non-conforming structure in any business or commercial district may only be enlarged if they get a special permit. That I'm 99.9% confident that that is not accurate to state statute. That would need a variance.
Right.
So
Because I think we should.
okay,
get-
so not to talk in circles, but it seems like just a catch-all. We
Yeah.
need to come up with a catch-all.
If we're getting rid of any
okay.
special permits that are in existence now, then you need to give those owners ability to modify their property and not only do it via variance.
Do you all have questions about that?
Yeah, I'm looking at Frank about whether that's the.
How to write a catch-all.
I'm thinking of what I haven't really faced that exact question. You're not worried about that special permit being grandfathered. What you're worried about is their ability to come back to the P and Z
Mhm.
and further modify the special permit.
Yeah, happens all the time. We have
Yeah.
people with existing special permits.
No,
Could
so I
even
think,
be, for example, special permit in institutional use in our residential zone.
Right.
We just had one last
what it
night.
really is
Done years
we're
ago.
not trying to deem these structures non-conforming. Yes, they're grandfathered in, but we don't want them to be considered non-conforming structures.
Right.
Because then that opens up the variance can of worms. So it's just instead of having these, it takes up 2 pages of the regulations of, in this case, you can have these buildings, just a catch-all of, X type of building constructed via,
These permits.
these special permits are considered conforming building.
I have seen exactly that. I wasn't
Yeah,
sure.
that's
Yeah.
what-
I have seen
Yeah.
that regulation,
Ah.
that anybody who
Yeah.
has a special permit in place as
we're-
of the
yeah, that we're
adoption of
eliminating
these
as being conforming.
regulations
Yeah.
is now
And
considered.
in that case, if they're looking to modify it, they're gonna come back to us for using that same tool of a special permit.
If they need us. But if you're
Well, so
making a
whatever-
modification that's in conformance with the new regulations, then you might not need us. Because we've then blanket allowed a new regulation that was just fine, you could do that as a right anyway.
I
So
mean,
you shouldn't have to come after
realistically,
us.
like the buildings we're talking about were built in 2017 and 2021. I don't know what changes they're going to be doing in the next 10 to 20 years. I mean, they're brand new-ish buildings,
still,
but
though,
no,
they-
like I
right?
hear you. Yeah.
Markets change, you need to, do things differently, so.
But in answer to your question, what I have seen is it's just a one-liner put in.
Then yeah,
Okay.
that would, I think
Says
that's appropriate.
Any special permit that has been granted by P and Z as of the date of these regulations is considered a conforming building.
And so it seems like that would
That's been
probably,
removed, right? Like maybe not any. Because if we're eliminating, like there's some special permits that are going to remain.
yeah, so we're talking about again 4.8H. And so it seems like most of those apply to building height. So maybe it's just a catch-all statement under 4.5A, height exceptions for structures. Just a catch-all statement in there.
And you want it specifically to be the business and retail zone? Or is it for, because if it was in the non-conforming section, then it would be for all.
It'd be for
Yeah, no, I
everybody.
mean, I would, again, I recommend it being in 4.5A.
Okay.
And then it applies to the retail. I would just apply it to the retail and business zones because we have exemptions in both.
So retail and business.
We can draft that and propose.
Yeah.
it. That was my short list.
Yeah,
Thank you. That was
Alright.
helpful.
so we should,
Wait, does anyone else?
Should we
have
talk
a
about
comment?
FAR? I think that's,
I think John
Yes.
had one comment on that.
oh,
your
John's
hands
hand
up,
is permanently
okay. Sorry.
We're just talking about business district, right?
And
But I can
retail.
talk about anything in the business and retail. So I want to talk about signs and lights. It seems to me that we're getting more and more lights all the time and signs. I don't know if you know it, but we have some rules now, like you can't tape signs in your storefront windows. We have some restrictions, but people, I don't know, cheat, in many different and creative ways. For example, we had, and this predates Sarah, but we had somebody with a neon sign. It was not on the outside of the building. It was not even on an exterior wall. It was on an interior wall. And it was obvious, to the streetscape that it was, a big branding neon sign. That's happened more than once. In one case, it was a car dealership, and another time it was a bank did that. I'm watching technology explode with respect to lights. I'm going to defer to my architect friend here. Everything from, if you go to New York, you start to see the leading edge of that, where the Empire State Building and everything else is not only colored lights because of LED lights and our ability to control them and make them blink and do whatever we want. I have a commercial building in town with a great big empty wall on it. And I thought, oh man, just like Rockefeller Center, I could project all kinds of stuff on the side of the building. I don't think our regulations have caught up with lighting technology. I know that my conservation friend next to me is also, is always worried about the birds and the bees and how they're affected by all this light pollution. It usually comes up in the residential district, but in some, well, we talk about light shading and all that. I know that there's precedent for light shades, and not being able to see it on your neighbor's properties. Anyway, I'd like to see a much more robust treatment of light and signs. Banks they'll say, well, they'll get a poster from headquarters, and it was, I won't name the bank, and they put it up in the plate glass window, and then that kind of defeats the purpose of having plate glass windows. That bummed me out. You point that out to them, and they took it right away. But all the realtors in town, and I'm one of those realtors, all the realtors in town have essentially done the same thing by filling the plate glass windows with lit
Yeah, no, we've.
Real estate.
controlled- Yeah, we've.
So-
controlled.
Sorry, I just want to jump in really quick. I love the enthusiasm. We do not have the capacity, I think, to talk about signage and lighting ahead of July 1. Unfortunately, I don't think we're addressing that ahead of time. I mean, just
I just
tonight.
wanted to put
Yeah.
out that it's
Something
important.
We can come back to
So-
after
oh,
July
yeah,
1.
it's
We don't have to
not-
debate it,
Oh,
but I
would
want
say
it on the
everything,
agenda.
We're coming back to everything.
Just wrote it down.
After that, as well as mandates on landscaping issues.
Yeah, those are the basic
Yeah.
standards,
Which
yeah.
is a few chapters away. So we're on the business chapter.
But we should do that after July 1st.
So Sarah's basically saying I get the last
There's a
word
clock on
Yes.
until July.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank
Save the best
Yeah.
for last.
Yeah, I think it's also getting through, we need to get a big decision on this, these business zones. And one of them is coming up here in 2C, and that is, I don't want to jump, but it's option 1 and 2 on these retail. We've got to decide on the mapping of the retail zones for the workshop. So we've got to get
That's very true.
through
And
this.
also, we have significant parking mandates that are coming July 1 that we haven't even talked about yet. So I just.
I was gonna
not
ask
to-
the parking issue, particularly the 4% carve outs. I assume we want to do that.
Talk about FAR, and then we need to talk about parking. Yeah,
And can we
so-
talk about use? Sorry, just to throw it
Okay.
down.
For you on parking.
Follow the agenda.
Yeah, so we're on 2B, I believe.
Where were you?
Hold on, wait, 2B.
Wi-Fi
Can be emailed
coverage.
to me.
Wi-Fi
Sorry.
coverage.
Yeah.
That's what we currently.
The agenda, so we're on item 2 and then commercial
Commercial
zones.
units.
And then we've covered now the
Elm Street, yeah.
middle housing and we're on B, the FAR analysis.
Do you want me to pull up?
So-
Yeah.
So-
You could pull up the presentation of things.
So
I'll
we
just
changed
explain.
it
Have you all had a
to
chance to read
next
this memo?
Total building height
And that's another
Our
5.
analysis for the proposed business zones?
is above these
Wait,
two.
I'm sorry.
Might just highlight it, Emily.
Okay.
Got it.
So you have a memo in front of you. It's a draft memo. It just says FAR analysis for proposed business zone on the top. I hope you've had a time to read it in advance, but basically what this does is it does a very simple build out analysis of what could be developed in the future proposed business zone, not the retail zone, but the combined business zone. If you were to adjust the FAR requirements. So it looks at, so last time we showed you what would happen if you changed to 0.6 FAR, 0.7 FAR, and 0.8 FAR. I'm sorry, I just blanked, but we talked about that, but we wanted to give you actual numbers so that you could see what this would look like a little bit better. So
Actually,
the
you asked
first
for it
part-
last time.
Yeah, so the first part of the memo just kind of gives an overall view of how much additional development could occur in the business zones. There are some, like if you read the full text here, there are definitely some caveats with the data and with the methodology, mostly that we don't have data for every single lot, and that these are based on, the number of stories, so it doesn't count if there's like a partial story or things like that. So this is an estimate, but just for comparison, you can see the additional development potential. And in any kind of build out, you never have a full, like you're not going to have every lot built to the maximum in the next 10 years. So we've done a percentage of this looking at 20% or 25% of a full build out, which also is pretty unlikely to happen. But this gives you a sense of the range of additional development you could get under the existing conditions, which each of those business zones has different FAR limitations right now. And under the conditions, if you made all of those business zones have a 0.6 FAR, 0.7 FAR, and a 0.8 FAR. And then the second part of this memo, we provide some specific examples that Sarah picked out so that you could see what some of the sites that are, I think all of these are within the business A zone.
One might be business D, but
Okay.
yeah.
Which one is?
Acme might be business D.
Okay.
It may not be though.
I think I checked them, but yeah, it could be off. Okay, and so I guess let's do that first and then come back to the inclusionary cap. But so the first example is 75 Pine Street. on your memo, you should have these images up close so you can see them better than what's on the screen. We also have these slides that we made to show you. So 75 Pine Street. This is Zoombox. Is that the coffee shop? Yeah. So you'll see there the building and the parking that's surrounding it and the lot outline. It's a one-story building. The development, which is the actual building, is about 5,000 square feet. The lot size is a little over 20,000 square feet, and you have a built FAR of 0.23 there. This is in the business A zone where you're currently allowed a 0.4 FAR. So if you were to change the allowable FAR to 0.6, for example, the table below shows how much allowable development you would have and the additional development potential of the site. So in this example, the site is not built to its full development potential with the existing conditions. So you'll see here that the allowable development is actually twice as much about, and you could add an additional 3,500 square feet there as is. If we increase it to 0.6 FAR, you could add an additional 7,800 square feet. 0.7, you go up to 9,900, and then to 0.8, 12,000. So we have a few more examples of this so you can get a sense of.
Ask a
Yes.
question. I mean, doesn't our parking requirements basically restrict? I mean, the reason like this building was never built bigger than it was is because, I mean, I guess it could be another story, but it needs parking.
You're right, that
I
parking
feel like the
limits-
parking is the limiting factor on whether we ever achieve the.
A good example we have of that.
I was gonna say parking is limiting factor, so if the business is, you know, the financial pro forma for them is good enough, they'll go to structured parking or underground parking. But this, you're right, I think.
This is a coffee shop. They're not gonna have a
Yeah,
parking.
they're not gonna have a parking structure, that's right. This would be the higher the FAR, the more you're giving them, you know, an incentive to build, to tear it down, and build.
And there
So-
are various, other
Yeah.
uses that could come in here.
One of the things the state's doing, though, is meddling with parking requirements. So I don't know if I want to rely on parking to keep us from overdeveloping. Oh, well, it's okay because the reason people don't develop more is because they have a parking requirement. When every time I look, Hartford is basically deciding how much parking we need and lessening that threshold.
Or
So
eliminating it.
we're eliminating
We'll get to
it.
that.
And
So-
so figure it out.
I'm a little worried.
I recommend, so I think there are 4 examples total. I recommend we go through all 4 of them because it's interesting examples and it kind of paints a unique picture.
As we go through them, we can, I think,
That's useful, yeah.
I think if we can get
And
through
a
them,
good comment. Tom.
yeah, if we can get through them quickly, I think you'll be able to decide. What we want is to decide if we do 1 or 2 of these options on the mapping, what's the FAR for that big business zone? And we have a recommendation on it, but we want to make sure, before we do our recommendation, we want to see how your feeling is when we get through these 4.
So just to get to the point, I understand that it's only 4 examples, but in these examples, the lower the FAR, the more sprawling parking lot you have, you know? So I
That's true too.
don't know how that makes you feel or not.
Although
but-
you can't park a normal site at an FAR that's higher than 0.5. You really can't park it because of the parking requirements and how much parking takes. So there's a balance between that and how much development you want. So at any rate, if we
Okay.
get through the 4 of these, I think it'd be.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's also notable, sorry.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, I thought so.
I always raise my hand.
Let's go.
Quickly, Emily, yeah.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Well, it's also notable that that one is a 1-story building. The next one is also a 1-story building. This is 288 Elm Street. I think this was the Acme property, which you can see as Sarah is describing, you have this very large parking lot around it. This one is also under the allowable FAR of 0.4. It's at 0.29. And this one, it has the same information here about what you could do with additional development. So this currently is underbuilt, so it could be built another 12,000 square feet under current conditions, or it could increase pretty substantially the higher FAR that you allow.
You know, if we move to a 6, you essentially added another building.
Well,
You
you
just
gotta,
put it on top, another
Well, you could-
story.
So there's
Well, it
like
is one
pros and
story
cons.
now,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's
Yeah, you go to
pros and
2.
cons of this. Like if you want, I mean,
Point
like
7, you go to close to 3.
this site, for example, if you wanted to incentivize them to build a little more and maybe have the parking in the back in the future and build closer to the street, and have maybe a 2-story building, you know, there's some like pros and cons rather than having this like streetscape of just a, it looks like a pretty empty parking lot, but that could
I've
also
never
be just
seen
the
that
street.
parking lot that empty.
No,
Okay,
I was
so it's
gonna say,
usually full?
it's-
Okay.
it doesn't look
I
like
don't know
that.
what time of day this
It
was.
looks even here like it's full, so, yeah.
All right, okay. Well, it looks like a lot of
This morning.
impervious surface coverage.
A lot of impervious there.
Yeah, you could,
Yeah.
I mean, on that building, you could go up another story and get another 33,000 square feet, it looks
Yep.
like.
Mhm.
So a 0.6 would allow that. The next one is 220 Elm Street. This one is a little bit different. This one is 2 stories. This one has a built FAR of 0.73 compared to the allowable max of 0.4. And as you can see, I think Frank wanted to comment a little more about this, but the parking here, unless they have some kind of shared agreement with neighboring properties, they have a very minimal amount of parking
Yeah,
on site
I
that they're
looked at
able to
this
provide.
and this doesn't work.
This is an anomaly. This got built, originally it was
An 832
Avalon
settlement, right?
Bay, and it was a land swap deal involving the apartments across from Lakeview Cemetery, which are now called
Riverwood.
Riverwood.
Yep.
And there used to be the salt dump for the town there and storage of vehicles, and it was a big, and this got built as part of that.
Okay, so if it's an anomaly, it seems like we're
It's an
Getting more-
anomaly. that this
going
was
more
built.
towards 0.6.
Yes.
Okay.
That, by the way, to-
Or
to
0.5.
cut through this, that's where we are.
Yeah,
But,
so our recommendation is
yeah,
0.6.
That's right.
We go to the final
But
example.
why would it be 0.6 if what I just heard Frank say is, you know, you're not gonna park a piece of property with anything greater than 0.5?
Yeah, it's difficult to. For instance, take this property.
Mhm.
Well, there,
A naive idea to think that New Canaan is all of a sudden going to become vehicle less and parking demand is going to go down.
there are instances of shared parking and
Oh,
underground
yeah,
parking.
there
you
are.
know?
But
We have Burgess Ave, which is a 1.44
Yeah.
FAR. So
You could do, I
but
mean,
that has underground parking.
But just because we allow 0.6 doesn't mean 0.6 will get
It's
built. The
covered
market
parking,
will
not
dictate what
underground
gets
Market
built.
will
And
dictate
the
it, but
market's gonna dictate parking in this town.
I have difficulty with this exercise because the state of Connecticut doesn't have environmental review. Because we can't assess that with the addition of anywhere between 200,000, 300,000 square feet, how does that impact infrastructure? How does that impact traffic? How does that impact, you name it, bloom, shadows, all that sort of stuff. So we're kind of throwing out numbers. We're saying 0.5 FAR, 0.6 FAR, but how does that actually impact the daily life of people and how they move through the streets and how they, visual, questions and sewer infrastructure, like those things. I feel like obviously they haven't been studied, but and it's hard to analyze because a significant increase in square footage and the ability to develop that could have those negative impacts that we're not studying.
That's where site plan review, we hope, would come into effect, or that would help you all consider, what you already do is consider the various implications of these specific developments on a more site-specific level, as opposed to like a blanket FAR is, a pretty blunt tool in comparison with site plan review or a special permit that can look at the individual site and the circumstances related to it.
We've also loosened up the site plan
Yeah.
review
Mhm.
to allow things with the zoning permit.
But I mean, what's going to really impact sewer is, housing development and whatnot. And even with the state's mandates, the Department of Public Works and the town engineer and WPCA and all those bodies are still reviewing it. And, if there's not capacity, just in the sewer example, there's an issue and it can't just automatically
But I
be
think it's,
approved.
to Eric's point, I think it's a bigger issue more in terms of as we increase the scale of the development in town, whether it's on the residential side, like some of the 30G applications, or a potential for a commercial redevelopment that's going to increase the density and scale and everything else. How do we get those developers to contribute to the town's pressures on infrastructure, whether it be roads, sewer, schools, police, whatever it is?
So, I mean, we have impact fees. The Department of Public Works just enacted a sewer impact fee that Bertus has to pay.
Yeah, but how big is that?
Significant Bertus. I don't know off the top of my head, but you know, that did just get approved by the Board of Selectmen. So, I mean, we're working on it.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm hearing from, you know, everyone is people would be more comfortable with a lower FAR. So maybe a 0.5 is what I'm hearing. With that, you know, I think what exists today is we do have non-conforming buildings like Locust Ave Hotel, as an example. Every office building is going to be non-conforming, I assume.
Businessy.
How do we want to handle that? And then, you know, we have this anomaly of we just a couple of years ago approved Bertus Ave, where technically right now, if you're doing an inclusionary housing development, we have no FAR. Are we keeping that? Like, is this too much and we're done and we need to reel it back in? Or, you know, those are what we're trying to solve with this update, because these problems already exist. So how do we want to go forward?
And just to remind you, in the last meeting, we looked at a memo that we produced where we studied how many properties will become non-conforming with this FAR adjustments. And that's how we had originally come to the 0.6 decision. We hadn't tested 0.5. We were tasked with testing 0.7 and 0.8 FAR.
I get this sense that 0.7 and 8 are too high, and that really 0.6, we did look at how many became, we can go back to that presentation actually and put it up.
And I would just remember that the retail zone has no FAR, so we're really only talking about the business zone.
Well, to your point on the inclusionary zoning side of it, could we have a slightly denser FAR allowance if the development triggers the inclusionary zoning?
Yes, in the memo
So-
that we proposed
So
that.
I did skip over that, but in the second page of this memo, we talked about providing a cap on FAR for inclusionary zoning developments.
Gotcha.
So currently in your inclusionary zoning, you exempt those properties from the FAR limits. The kind of reason that you do that is because you're giving a height bonus already, so that's already impacting you know, the amount of development. So we are suggesting having an FAR cap. It's not an FAR bonus, it's a cap of about 40%, which reflects that height increase that you're allowing.
Related to the height that you already have.
Yeah, so in here, you'll see table 2 shows the proposed inclusionary zoning caps for these different proposed FARs for the baseline for the business zone. So at a 0.6, you would have a 0.9 FAR cap. And so if you think about that, looking at the Bertus Avenue site, that's a 1.44. So it is a pretty limited cap.
Well, what it relates to, I really wanted to relate to, you already allow one extra story.
Yeah, it has to relate to that.
And that relates to somewhere between 35 and 40% increase for that story in your FAR, as you're adding a story. So.
And so I guess what that'll do is, just using Bertus Ave as the example, it's going to really limit the size of the units, because if you know, if they built at a 1.44, if in theory it would only be built at a 0.9, not same size lot, you have to lose volume somehow. The density that we allow isn't changing, but the building volume is changing. So in theory, the units are going to be significantly smaller if you're going to keep that density.
Essentially, we're adding like a coverage limit.
Yeah, we want smaller units. Yeah.
It gives an encouragement to the developer to do smaller units, but it doesn't mean, it depends on what his market is. What her market is.
So the suggestions: remove exception for FAR in the business zone and add the FAR cap for inclusionary zoning. potentially like a 40% increase from the baseline FAR in the business zone.
That relates, and again, that just relates to your height. What we're trying to do is not go too high and not go too low. Your height is adding a third to any development because you allow now 2.5 stories, I guess. And we're allowing 3.5 stories. That's a third increase right there. So we could even make it a 35% increase, but
And would we
we're
keep,
working out.
in the inclusionary zoning, would we keep the height limitation and add a FAR?
That's what we've heard from you,
Yes.
yeah.
The only thing we're doing here is trying to find a simple way, like 40% or even
Right.
35%. That is what you get now with the height. If you add a third level to a 2-story building.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think your proportion there is fine.
Yeah.
The question then still is, I mean, I
What's
guess
the
I'm
big-
okay with 0.6. I don't speak for everybody here.
I think that's what we had thought you were aiming at in the past. We think 0.6.
Can you zoom in on that a little bit?
Yes.
I think,
Yep.
I think if we increase the FAR cap, it just would increase coverage.
So this is at the 0.6.
Yep. So for the past meeting, we had a memo that compared 0.6, 0.7, and 0.8. The existing nonconformities versus how much would be under the proposed FAR.
A lot of non-conforming.
So the
Goes up,
sort of
goes down.
catch-all we discussed earlier about buildings with special permits before X date in 2006 are not.
We can make
Yeah,
them
they're not
all.
captured in this data.
captured in this data, but would that be a potential solution to all of the buildings in business C that are captured in this data? No, because they don't have special permits.
No, yeah.
No, but I mean, that goes to one of the other things that I think you brought up that we need to talk about, which is later on the agenda. I think it's soon on the
I mean,
agenda.
we can,
So we don't have to pivot. I
Yeah.
just, sorry.
The
I was just trying to
nonconformity.
figure out.
no,
if
it's
that
all
was
related.
consistent
It's all
with
part of the same
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
Um,
I think for those existing buildings, we have a way to solve that nonconformity. So it's,
I mean, it seems like the consensus is 0.6.
I agree with Eric that we barely understand FAR. The public, the rest of the commission doesn't. The public doesn't. It's not well understood. So 0.6, 0.7, it's all an abstraction. I have a tough time with it.
We'll
We're
have
just
to-
not a culture here in New Canaan
Yeah.
that has ever used the word. And
But
so
you
you and
do-
Sarah can toss it back and forth
Yeah, I mean,
with
it's-
great understanding. But the rest of us, if I'm honest, it's like the emperor's new clothes. I don't know what you're talking about, 0.6 and 0.7.
it's a good point. And most people don't get FAR. We can give a slide. I mean, it's a slide that I'm sure Sarah's seen 100 times. Of
I'd
explaining
rather
FAR.
continue to talk about height and coverage.
But we can also do something like we have on these slides in the public meeting, but show a site that's built at 0.6 right now. I'm sure we
Well,
can.
the key
refine.
there is to understand the FAR. I think what I'm talking about, Emily, is to answer John's question. We have a couple of slides that just explain FAR very
Calculation,
simply,
yeah.
very simply. But it shows the one FAR. What's a one FAR? All it controls is square footage, and the slide shows you 100% coverage, 50% coverage. Sarah's saying this, I'm sure, 25% coverage. You understand, so that the public understands what FAR is, but it's in your code now. FAR.
I don't know what the history is, if it
Yeah.
came up in the 2005 update or before that, but
They snuck it in when I wasn't looking, so that's the problem.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
No, just go, I mean, I wasn't here last time, but that it doesn't seem as though going to an FAR substantially reduces nonconformity.
No, there's already many
You're
existing
right. I
nonconformities.
think the
yeah.
key is,
Yeah, so it
the
goes
key is your
down-
non-conforming section in your zoning code. Depends on how far you want us to go. We've done in codes that as of this date of the code, anybody who was non-conforming is conforming. I mean, it depends on how you want to go.
No, so
We
I
can
think-
solve that problem.
again, I think that goes back to the conversation I think we internally had, and, we need to talk about momentarily, because I think it's more about the expansion in the future. Like you look at the Locust Ave Hotel example where they were at the max, and then, they wanted to put a little addition on top to redevelop the property. And I mean, what do you do about that?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that makes sense in the non-conforming section of the regs.
Yeah, that's a different question though.
That's a special permit.
Would be.
This is not, this is,
Well, I think,
special permit's different because they came here and we said, okay, we are okay with your proposal. We are.
No,
right. This is,
agree.
we are saying just generally applying the non-conforming to say something that was built as of right 50 years ago, which is, it doesn't have, I think, the added layer of scrutiny that took place here. So I'm less comfortable adding a blanket, everything that existed today that's conforming and then becomes non-conform, would become non-conforming, is therefore conforming, and more so in the special permit context because it had the extra scrutiny of going through a commission. I mean, but all that said, like the FAR, if it doesn't bring things into more conformity, then I'm not sold on
So
the value.
So the
we're also, sorry, yeah, we're also like consolidating several business zones in this proposal. So, you know, those FARs range from 0.4, 0.6, 0.9, and 0.6. So not every zone is having like an increase in FAR.
Like the business season.
We were trying to come to something that
You
was
can,
like
you
a
can see
reasonable
them up
medium.
there.
Yeah, so B and D right now are already 0.6. So it's really just business A that's at 0.4 that would be increasing to 0.6, which are the examples that were just shown. Now we're all in business A, so you have an idea of what the current built form is and what that would be like if some of those 1 stories went to 2 stories, for example. And then business C is the only one that would be decreasing. And we have on here under C, 2C, the main conversation that we were having around the mapping change was whether it would be 1 retail and then consolidating all the business zones into 1, or having 1 retail zone and then having 2 business zones, maintaining what's currently business C, which is the only one that has a higher FAR than 0.6 as of now.
So that's the next thing we want. That's
Yeah.
a nice transition, maybe to the key thing I think we've got to decide. I don't need to put it so bluntly like that, but if we want a public hearing before July 1, the key mapping issue
Gotta draw the
is
lines.
right here. 2C, the map changes. We see two options from what you discussed last time. Keep the retail, have 1 retail zone. I think there was agreement on that.
Yes.
And then it was a question of, do we go to 1 business zone? So combine, that yellow up there would
Right.
become 1 business zone. Or I think, Eric, what you're talking about now, you're worried about that just solving that nonconformity. Dan raised the option 2. I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but we weren't sure if there was agreement on 1 zone. We like it, but option 2 is the retail zone, 1 zone, everybody agreed to, and have 2 business zones. Just retain business C, which is the zone that has a higher
And
FAR.
business C only has like 7 properties in it.
It's the area
Right,
in
correct,
gray on
correct,
here,
yeah.
Making a
Sense to
zone
me.
for 7 properties.
Keep, yeah, 7 properties is,
Keep 7 properties that are overbuilt.
Even under current conditions.
Yeah, so right now, even at 0.9.
And
they're
we have
not
the
conforming.
opportunity to make them conforming.
Well, yeah, I would say that whether or not they're conforming
No.
probably isn't the priority. I think it's moving forward, what happens on those lots, whether you're promoting preservation of those existing structures or incentivizing them to tear them down, or you also want to incentivize people to maintain them and upkeep them. So this sort of all blends into the one other item that we can just introduce quickly, and then we can talk about it maybe as a whole.
if I look at that.
Yeah.
We have 2, I'm gonna call them nondescript buildings on Grove Street with now town property running through. Well, we have an old house and something will probably happen to that in due course. I think, maybe, who knows, but part of it is owned by the town. And then we go elsewhere, we have the hotel. So drop that. And across from that is, I another nondescript office building, and then kitty corner from it is where the Board of Ed was, which is a fairly nondescript office building. So preservation, I'm not feeling preservation on these.
Well, I guess that's the question, right? Do we like the development pattern or not like the
No.
development pattern? If we don't, then okay, change it. I mean, I'm just trying to
No, it's fair.
holistically understand, kind of conceptually, right?
Yeah.
If you're gonna do zoning changes, you're either going to reflect what's there today in terms of matching because you like the built character, or it's got to be aspirational. So
So I think I'm
gotta
headed towards
pick one.
aspirational,
Okay.
but my concern that I voiced last time is, these are all brick office buildings built in the 1970s. I'm
Right.
sure they're not cheap to come down. I'm sure they're not
Oh,
cheap
yeah.
to buy. So are they just going to become relics that are not invested in and become an eyesore?
the only
I think-
opportunity is then you're gonna lose square footage when you come back and build.
Which
Yeah.
again is
Well,
where-
so this is, yeah, go ahead.
Office buildings that we're not going to get rid of, there's a potential for revitalization like the hotel is doing.
Yeah.
The one on the corner of Grove and Elm, that one, the mining company sold that one, and whoever bought it revitalized and rehabilitated the whole building 5 years ago. So they're staying there for a while.
Yeah.
All of those are the business C,
Yeah, the other one on Grove is purchased by what, Stanford Hospital?
Stanford Hospital.
I
And
don't think they're
they
going
put
anywhere
a,
anywhere. It's medical office.
and they put a
mostly.
buttload of money in that one too.
So again, one of the questions that we need to discuss soon is the Locust Ave hotel dimensional exceptions that we wrote for them. Do you want to incorporate them for all those other office buildings? That was one of the topics we asked BFJ to explore, and that's what we have to talk about. Do you?
To give people an option for adaptive reuse.
Yeah.
With some minor.
That's on
And we see that as
page 2 of your agenda, right after your agenda.
Which is where, so, my opinion is combine all the zones and then, incorporate something for these buildings. So not so it becomes a hotel, but so these other office buildings have the ability to give a facelift to
Yeah, but as soon as you combine all the zones, then you end up in the dilemma on the FAR. I mean, you're going to be limiting business C zone significantly.
So we propose here, taking essentially the language that you wrote already. And one option, if you were to combine the zones, that you could have this special exception that you have for hotels right now. The option is either you could keep it just for hotels or you could make it for any building, but say that when it's located in an existing structure that is in the area previously zoned as business C and is part of an adaptive reuse project, the following dimensional exceptions may be utilized.
If you're going to that length, then just keep business C.
Well, that's why we said 2 options. But
Map looks prettier without it.
Also, again, they are non-conforming
There's a
under
logic
business
to
C.
the way
They're
the
not conforming.
map was structured with the zones previously, right? It's a pretty evident and distinct difference between each one of these zones for very obvious reasons. I don't want to propose a zoning change that's going to handicap any existing, because it's going to be pitchforks with the owners coming in here and saying, why are you doing this to my zone? They're not stupid. They're going to know exactly
To
what's
Sarah's
going
point,
on.
they're already not conforming.
It's not about the non-conform.
I mean, it is.
Yeah, I guess.
So then, do you just not provide any dimensional exception? And if someone wants to come and do some sort of redevelopment, then we're in the cycle that we're already in, where
Right.
developers telling us how to change our regulations to fit their project.
My own sense is that, if one of these were to be built today, there would be significant public input, put it that way. Since that ship has already sailed and it's already there, if it's an adaptive reuse of that, I call it broadly same dimensions, I think the likelihood of blowback and, public agitas would be much lower because, well, it's already there. So it's going to be something nicer and a little bit more facilities for the public or something else than what they have now. So I think something along these lines is
Yeah.
worth considering.
I agree.
That this currently only applies to hotels, so it also, you have to think about, do you want to incentivize adaptive reuse only if it's only for hotels, or if you want to make it for any existing structure, it could be any sort of principal permitted use, and if that's the case, would that be just in the business C zone as well?
Well,
Or maybe non-office use, because you don't want
Yeah,
to
I'd say
facilitate a bigger
non-office.
office building.
we have, so there's going to be a hotel being built. I assume that will happen.
So again, there are
I'm not
only
sure-
4 other office buildings where
I'm
this
not sure
could
3
apply
or
to.
4 hotels in town are really gonna happen or necessary.
No, but you have to give the owners of those existing properties the ability to be able to rehabilitate and
Yeah.
reposition those buildings as they see fit.
Yeah, so the comment
this would
of
do that if it was more
non-office
generic.
use
Hmm?
would be,
This would do that if it were more generic to
Yes.
something beyond just
If we
hotels.
applied this generically,
Yeah.
So leave it in as a special permit that applies to those 4 buildings and the opportunity to them come and rehabilitate, they'll come to us. And
it
For some
could be mixed
non-office use,
use,
yeah.
it could
For some
be some
non-office
grade
use, yeah.
retail. It could be a lot of
Just make
things.
sure that transit community middle housing can't use this.
but Sarah, what you're thinking on why not be able to use them for an office building? If they're.
Because I mean, they're already massive office buildings. Do we want larger office buildings? I don't.
I don't think
I
that's-
don't
We
think
need to
so.
expand them.
Shouldn't apply if they're keeping the office use.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, it should be for a different use.
Pardon?
Should be for
Like,
adaptive
they're
reuse,
gonna
so
put a
change of use.
penthouse, right? Shouldn't be to rehabilitate a building to just continue to be
office,
as an
yeah.
office. Should be for something different.
Yeah, the wording adaptive reuse implies that we're changing.
Why? Why would we?
I mean, again,
Why would
I
we
don't know
limit
the
that?
office market is everything. I mean, is everything? Maybe
Why
John
do
knows
we-
more than I do.
What
Are
other
all
use?
the offices in town
Like housing.
fully occupied?
or
Like, is there huge
hotel,
vacancies? Like, what's the?
Hotel or
are the offices
um,
all
a
in
school.
town?
I don't know. I'm just throwing out various an institutional
Yeah.
use, like
Yeah.
I guess the question is whether or not you want to regulate that if it's necessary.
There's demand for office space.
Can see.
Okay, that's all.
So.
5% is
10% or
frictional
less
vacancy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there's
in my
always
opinion.
some demand for office space in town.
We're not
The
getting rid of that. We're
softest
just saying we're
demand
not
is-
gonna let you redevelop to expand office.
Make a
and
bigger
already
office
large
building.
buildings.
Yeah.
We've already have.
The A class gets scooped up if they have elevators or they're A class. It's the only vacancies we have is really what I'd call C class.
We have to
That's
give
true
the,
everywhere.
but we have to give those, in my opinion, I think we have to give those building owners the ability to upgrade to an A class and not handicap them if they wanted to add the penthouse
So I
or
think
reskin the building.
Without
Or
going,
modify the
under-
parking.
yeah, undergoing the
So-
massive
above.
expenses of converting it to a different
Then
use.
yeah,
I mean,
office,
yeah.
okay, right.
So
Okay.
I think a great topic at the public workshop might be putting not this technical of a discussion, but an aspirational conversation of what would people like to see with those office buildings? Do they want to see them torn down? Do they want to see them as is, or would they want to see them freshened up?
I think that's
And
great.
that may help
Yeah.
determine how you guys
Torn down,
move
but
forward.
There would
Yeah, I
be
wouldn't
something
go,
else
I
there
wouldn't
of
go the torn
size.
down.
Yeah, but if
But just, you know, that general
right, if
conversation,
there's,
you know?
I mean, they've done it in New York City and East Midtown. They let the JP Morgan, or is JP Morgan building, or what's the enormous
Yeah,
building
the new-
to the ground, right?
Yeah.
That's a product of a 2014 zoning change that said that you would get floor area bonuses if you basically took your building down to the ground and build it higher and modernized the interior with better elevators, better core, better HVAC, all of that.
So that was a JPM exception.
Yeah, but a lot of other guys are doing it too.
Yeah, but there's a lot of empty lots in Midtown right now that are new buildings coming out of the ground that no
Yeah.
one could have foreseen 10 years ago.
No, there are.
Rehab, I mean, if there's the demand, which and will ebb and flow, then that option to bring in a business that we might want to have there, you know, and make a nicer office building for them.
So any principal permitted use that
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's an argument for any principal permitted use.
What size, what's the dimensions of the building from core to window?
Depends on the building.
So if you're allowing them to expand
Adaptive use
office, why only
for
business?
residential, because you need max 30.
I mean, that's up for a future developer to figure out, not us.
Minimum, not max.
So if, okay, so now I'm hearing that we maybe don't like that adaptive reuse idea and like it also to be allowed an exception to expand
Depends how
the
big the
footprint
apartments are.
if you're building office
You're gonna
space.
be on
So
mass.
why would we limit
We're
that
saying
to,
that.
okay?
I don't think we're saying that.
This, we were saying, right, it went from hotels as far as like hotels, and then let's make it everything. Let's not make it office, let's include office. And I think we're landing at, let's make it essentially every use that's permitted in the
And I
district.
think
Every use.
since it's only
But a
in the
change of
business.
use for the
Yeah.
exception.
Change of
Can take
use.
advantage of this special permit.
I mean, as much as we're trying
And it's
to,
also a special permit, so we have to.
Change of use though, because it could be office to office.
Well, if you do office to office, then are you allowing them the bulk increase?
I think that was the idea.
With the
I
height.
think.
Yeah.
we're
So I would say if you're
interpreting-
doing a full rehabilitation of the site, instead of using the words adaptive reuse, maybe
Just
complete
rehabilitation.
site rehabilitation.
Okay.
So it's not requiring a change of use.
So then why would we not allow this in the other sections of the business?
Well, it's only right now offered in, yeah. It's also only offered right now in the business C for hotels.
Considering doing one large business zone, and this is the height of nonconformity.
Right.
Yeah, it's a non-conforming structure
Have
and
the
you're
opportunity.
allowing it to be rehabilitated.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That would be fine. And then, Dan, that might solve your issue. We could have one business zone.
It does.
Why don't we do that?
Our point is not to, protect only the small business owners and
Yeah.
and the residents in
Right.
town.
So why
They're
don't
residents in town as well. So those building owners,
we rewrite this to rehabilitate, the site rehabilitation
Yeah,
for existing
this thing.
buildings. So it's limited, but it gives everybody with those.
This is their safety valve. So
It's their safety valve.
Uh-huh.
That would work.
So
So
in effect, you have a subset of
Yes.
zone.
Yeah, in the area that's previously zoned as business
Yeah.
C.
Yeah,
I'm okay with
that's a
that.
nice,
So does that get everybody to the map with one business zone and one
Yes.
retail zone?
so you have one retail zone, one business zone.
Yeah, I'm
And,
just
but we
asking
have
you
this
guys.
section rewritten.
Back from business D.
I doubt it.
Business
That's
D
what the
wasn't,
public workshop is for.
I mean, yeah,
I'm
this
sorry,
is
we
our
can't,
proposal.
yeah.
Let's let the workshop happen and
Business D is also
That's
currently
the,
that's the-
FAR
The Wacket Club. and-
0.6,
It's
yeah.
already FAR 0.6, so this wouldn't change business.
And it's not the most non-conform, I mean, it's 0.69 is the existing.
close.
Oh, wait, no, sorry. that's-
Must be, I'm guessing the Racket Club is very
0.73.
non-conforming. I don't know about Weed and Duria. But
That's
Call that in.
closer.
I like the site. I like the rehabilitation,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, we can tweak that and we'll
Yeah.
add that into the
Yeah.
red line draft zoning text along with the other changes that you
I think
have.
this could solve, yeah.
so then if we do that, we still need to decide on the permitted max FAR.
And I assume we're okay.
Leaning towards 6.
Well, I'm leaning towards 6, but I don't know what anyone else here is doing.
I'm
Quite
assuming,
frankly,
I'm assuming on the map, as far as the borders of retail and business, we're okay with those?
0.6, so do we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we went over those at the.
Yeah, just want to be sure.
The borders are, yeah.
Are
I
you,
haven't
are
seen
you
any
all, oh, sorry. At the last meeting, you were leaning toward 0.6 for an FAR. When you look at these FARs, I mean, there's 2 zones at 0.4, there's 2 zones at 0.6, and then there's the business C at the 0.9, business D at 0.6. So 0.6 is the predominant FAR.
Yeah.
The only one that was an issue for us last time was business C, which I think we may have just solved. If
So
we
yeah, so
would-
you exclude C,
Mhm.
then the percentages that were on that non-conforming
I
table.
think
I
we
assume.
would say a building rehabilitation can be done.
Okay.
Whatever its built form is. So we've covered all those buildings in the business C zone.
Mhm.
We won't call it adaptive reuse. It's not adaptive. It's a
Rehabilitation.
building rehabilitation. And you can use all of the floor space then in that building,
Not ground up development, be it building rebuild.
not ground up. not ground up
Existing
new.
building.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
not
that
ground
has
up
to be-
new, you've got a problem because you got that
Do we
lower
have to,
FAR.
I don't want to be annoying, but do we have to define full rehabilitate, like, more than 50%?
We do.
Yeah.
That's easy to do.
I know
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
standard for that, but I'm just saying. I don't want somebody to come and be like, I'm gonna put in 6 new windows, building rehabilitation.
Yeah, we can
All
try
right.
and propose something.
Force everyone to jump around the agenda, but it is already approaching 9 o'clock. We haven't talked about parking yet. Do we want to talk about parking before we talk about inclusionary zoning?
Just to put a pin in it, FAR 0.6, we're good with it?
Yes, I thought so. Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
0.6, we'll go with that.
And then point,
After the
point
public.
nine for the,
We have a handout on parking.
Yes.
I'll give that to everybody. And let me preface it, sorry, Sarah.
No, you're good.
Do you want-
No.
All of our recommendations on parking, we'll go through them. are right out of something called the ITE manual. It's the International Traffic Association. And so it's based on, not in all cases, but in a case like office or medical office or housing, it's based on thousands of surveys by ITE.
There's two different sheets. One's existing, one's proposed. Yeah, you
Yes,
should.
I do.
Proposed is red line.
Yeah.
The
Go
red
ahead.
line.
My recommendation might be, rather than tonight focusing deeply on the changes of the parking for the, commercial uses, to maybe focus a little bit more on talking about the traffic mitigation district. Comments on the commercial uses, that could be sent to me via email.
What, like the use regulations or?
I'm talking about the commercial parking regulations, because again, the mandates coming from HB 8002 have nothing to do with commercial. This is more to just clean up what we allow, and just, for the sake of time.
You want us to review this and get back to you is what I'm hearing?
At least on the commercial uses, which is, most of the changes.
Just wanting
Yeah.
them to all know
Yeah.
that these are not picked out of thin air. If we're challenged on these, I can back up all of it. These are all ITE
Except for the
standards.
ones that are
Yeah.
from
Oh,
from Connecticut.
Yeah,
Mhm.
except for what,
which
we're-
are the ones
I
Sarah
can't
wants to
change the
focus on.
Connecticut state. I can't change what the state did. Yeah.
Makes sense.
So these are
Sorry.
standard ones that most towns use.
That not all towns use. If they have an old code, they have overparked themselves. These will slightly, in most cases, slightly reduce your parking, for instance, for office or retail, but only slightly. But they are based on actual data, whereas the old codes were based on, quite frankly, just providing, the guys wanted to make sure they'd never run short of parking, so they
Right, right.
provided a little bit more parking. And these are what data shows you really need. So I think these are solid. But if there's something you think we got off, yeah, I would email it to Sarah then and follow her.
So you're suggesting we should look at the residential uses here and discuss?
Well, so residential is mandated by the state now, but I'm talking about the traffic mitigation district, which is the 4% zones and whatnot that I've mentioned at other
Yes, ma'am.
meetings. So, I guess first and foremost for BFJ, we need to draft some sort of traffic mitigation district language.
I think that would go in the parking section.
Ask you guys, I don't know where you think it.
Earlier, I think it makes more sense in the parking.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
Because there's multiple zones that it applies to.
And then, would it be a special? Have a fun map I can pass around.
So what do you want to do? You want to go through the proposed?
No, I wanted to honestly just
At home and study it.
housekeeping wise, we, I've been working with Ty and Bond behind the scenes on, the 2 zones that we need to create the traffic mitigation districts. And, I just wanted to talk through 3 items with you all, to move forward with Ty and Bond so we can finalize the map. Stop sharing your screen for a moment. I will share my screen. Okay, let's go to,
Can I ask a parking question while we're here?
sure.
Just in the parking standards, just the language about basically taking
Questions?
what the definition.
Does a change of use require parking compliance?
Yes.
Why? And do we think it, I personally don't think that's a good thing. Because if you change
That's
it
what
from one use to another to require, so let's say you go from a medical office to, where's retail? So medical office is 200. And then, okay, so if you go from a medical office to a restaurant, you have to double the parking on
Yes.
site.
Yeah. Now, the old zoning codes, in answer to your question, and I don't mean to, yeah, the old zoning codes used to say on medical office, 6 spaces per thousand.
Right.
ITE is finding 6 is higher than you need. And
Right.
that's why we suggest reducing it slightly to, I don't have it in front of me. I thought it was 5 point,
Here.
it might be 5.
It's 1 space per 200 square feet,
that's-
which is the same as
That's
5
5,
spaces.
Right,
that's
so you have-
5 spaces per thousand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And
And,
so I know in New York, if you change the use of an existing building, you don't have to increase the parking requirement. So if you were going from a medical office to a retail use, you don't have to change the parking requirement
Yeah,
because it disincentivizes a tenant from going in that space, because what are you going to do? Lop off like a third of the building to add 3 parking spaces?
Yeah.
And it increases vacancies, and it doesn't help, particularly in a retail location, that you can keep a busy downtown.
So we don't have parking requirements
we
for
don't.
commercial uses in the retail zones.
Retail.
It's
All right,
only
so
in
in
the business
business.
zone.
Only in
Um,
business.
Okay, so saying in the business, I don't see.
I encounter this all the time with my building.
Yeah.
I mean, I own a non-retail building in the business zone, and it has variously been office, and I get asked by a physical therapist, can I rent that space? Because it's cheap enough for me and I need space, and I have, I can't get space anywhere else. And I say, sorry, that's considered medical. And you'd have to basically lop off half the space,
Right.
not use it. And, or we'll call it storage, or, I mean, it's just, we go around our elbow to get to the solution.
So we are trying to address that for like physical therapists, therapists and whatnot. I completely hear the point, but what about the inverse? What if Zoombox wants to become a medical office where the parking requirement is
Less.
Okay, I'm trying to think of an example where the parking requirement is more. So if you
that's what I
change the
just said.
use,
I just
okay.
went from medical office to a restaurant. Medical office is 1 per 200, and
then
a
you-
restaurant is 1 per 100.
Right.
I guess what I'm saying is that even if a dentist approached me for that same space, I mean, are we trying to say, I turned down a dentist recently for that space because I said, it's self-leveling, it's self-correcting, because somebody like me says, if I let a dentist into my building, all my office tenants will like freak out by all of this new traffic coming in and out and in and out. And so they tend to say, this building can't support it if this building can't support it. Right. I mean, it's self-correcting in the marketplace. So my point is, I'd rather not try and very finely distinguish between a physical therapist versus an esthetician versus the dentist, and split this with a fine hair. I think the marketplace is doing it for us.
Okay.
Actually, the way to solve that, if you wanted to, I'm not saying, I haven't seen a lot of communities do this, is to just stay with these proposals, which are ITE. They're actually based on valid data. They're based on real stuff. And then just take the New York City model.
But I think
do you
there-
want to do that?
Yeah, there
in
would
a-
be instances where
There'll be instances where you
might
might,
not be
Sure,
sufficient.
where
yeah.
you might not have
You are, you have
sufficient
traffic
parking.
coming by other means.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's different.
And I don't see like the vacancy issue you're I mean, I don't see in our business zones a ton of vacancy that tells me, oh, these can't be reused. I mean, it seems to be working. What we've done seems to be working in terms of vacancy, as far as I can tell.
The one change we have made since the last time was through our conversations, we added a definition of healthcare professionals, and that's just a slightly lower,
Slightly lower.
and that's for one-on-one. We defined that as therapists. You can see it in the resident, or the business zone definitions, you can take a look at that, but that was to address the needs of some one-on-one medical professionals like psychiatrists that only see one patient an hour and don't need the constant inflow, of patients. So that was our attempt to address that minor discrepancy, but
Because right now, as far as use and parking goes, we treat an urgent care center the same way we treat a one-on-one psychiatrist. And
That makes no sense.
Makes no sense.
So the new definition of healthcare professionals will outline exactly. what-
yes, it's a practitioner with
There's
an
one
advanced
about this.
degree, certification, or trained specialist who works primarily one-on-one to resolve health-related issues Such practitioners include but are not limited to psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, counselors, and nutritionists.
Yeah, by the way, we have a whole handout
Yeah.
of definitions. We were not,
Yeah.
we wanted to
Yeah.
get to the big
Yeah.
issues first. And then,
Why no, why is handicap, parking crossed out?
That's a federal requirement. I believe, yeah.
oh, we could keep it in. It's handicap parking is a federal requirement. You have to comply. Well, I shouldn't say that. You're supposed to comply. All towns, all municipalities, everywhere in the United States is supposed to comply.
So why wouldn't we just still keep it in there?
Yeah, we could. We could.
So I'm
That
curious,
aligns with federal regulations.
regulations align
Yeah.
with the federal regs. Question is zoning, because I'm not the town ADA ADA officer, so we're now adding in zoning is enforcing,
Which
ADA.
suggests that you will, and
and
we don't want to.
I'm not gonna pretend I'm qualified to do that.
But I guess if you're thinking from the
Right.
perspective of a developer who's coming here looking for their parking standards.
What I usually find is, I don't know if you find this, Sarah, but what we usually find is we do reviews for a lot of communities, and the applicant's gonna come in and he knows he has to, the architect always knows they've got to put in the ADA. So all we do
You'd be
is,
surprised.
make sure it's there. And then we ask George, hey, does this follow the federal regs? I don't know, but you have your own officer here, right, that does that? So I don't bring to this, we could keep.
You could add a sentence that just says that it's federally.
Yeah, it could be at the bottom, like all uses or all parking facilities must comply with federal, whatever the.
Well, just be specific, just
Yeah.
comply with the ADA regulations.
Are we ready for me to briefly talk about traffic
Sure.
mitigation districts?
Yes,
So, as a reminder, we get, 2 zones. Each has to be, less than 4% of the total area of the town. Last we spoke about it, we wanted to try to include the whole sewer district. We are mostly able to do that. There are just 2 points I want to talk to you guys about. So first is this area here with Marshall Ridge. You'll see that, some of these lots aren't included, and it's because they're not in the sewer district. But then we have these lots over here that are sewer capable. I don't believe they are currently connected to sewer, but they could.
When you say sewer capable means I own that lot and I can tap into the sanitary sewer
I
if I
believe
choose
so.
to do so.
I believe so.
Okay.
So do you want us to just extend the zone because it has to be contiguous, or are we just cutting it off and we don't, care about these few little parcels?
Do we have the space to extend the zone?
If we can, I think we want to use each
Yeah.
4% to the max.
Yes.
I think.
And then,
Yes.
so, we've excluded schools and parks that are on sewer. Just, we're not going to put all of Waveney Park in the district. We don't have the acres for it.
Right.
And, same with,
Okay, I think we're
middle
safe
school,
with Waveney
South
Park,
School.
yeah.
but we run into this issue where portions of this neighborhood south of the Y are on sewer. We don't have enough acres to include all of it. And also we would, again, because it has to be contiguous, we would have to then run at least a
Saks.
portion of it over Saks. I wouldn't do all of Saks because that's 30 acres.
Right.
And, we
do a-
probably have,
We have a tiny strip of,
but again, then the question is, we can't fit all of this.
Right, so how do we?
So
choose?
how do we, or do we just exclude it? It would have to be, again, this is 1 acre zoning. 830G already doesn't have to comply with our regulations. So, we're adding in the whole sewer district to be safe, but to be safe of what? Like potential future state laws that radically change the regulations. I don't really, like, we can manipulate it, but I don't know. I don't think it's possible to include this whole neighborhood. And then how do we split the baby essentially to
And that whole neighborhood is on sewer, like.
most of
Putnam down
it,
to Gertie's.
not quite down to Gertie's, but most of Putnam, it definitely goes all the way down to Conrad, but not all of Butler's on it. It's
Okay.
it's
But
bits and
since-
pieces.
Closer to South Avenue.
Does that whole district have water? It's water and sewer?
correct. And then, we were excluding the Y, but then do we need to include the Y?
Can you zoom out a little
Sure.
and go north? Yeah.
It's over.
So anything that's colored is going to be in the,
Yeah,
the-
anything in
the-
the hash.
And crosshatch.
oh,
The blue-
crosshatch,
The
excuse
blue
me.
overlay crosshatch.
And then, for example, we've excluded the Kelly Green, Orchard Lane, Select Place neighborhoods because they're all on septic.
Uh-huh.
Good.
So Sarah, remind me this, I know the traffic overlay district is so we can require parking requirements on,
Multifamily development.
so the only, because the areas we're talking about south of the Y are not zone multifamily, the only risk for multifamily development there would be an 830G.
Correct.
And when it's not in this traffic mitigation zone, then it wouldn't, but we can't require parking for 830G.
Well,
either.
830G, they don't have to meet our
Right.
requirements anyway,
So
so
there's
So
really
that's
no
South
risk
Avenue,
on
that's big.
top of the
I don't think so, I mean.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I was just asked to include as much of the sewer district as possible.
So Sarah, have we used all of our 8%?
Not quite. We have about 100 acres to play with.
So we can get some more, but maybe not everything. in the
Again,
sewer
how do
district.
we exclude
Yeah.
bits and pieces of one neighborhood? What is the justification?
Hmm.
And then, I mean, again, that's where we get into, we're now randomly adding in these couple of
Well, so why aren't
properties
we
on
just
septic.
doing it in areas that have the potential for multifamily development, like the apartment zone, the multifamily zone?
That was the initial plan.
Right.
But then you
But
wouldn't use
then
up all of it, right? It
we
be
would not.
Substantially
Yeah.
less, so.
So we've
We-
already, I
I
can
mean, we are
understand
already
covering,
covering apartment and multifamily zone.
Right,
Certainly.
but we've covered
But then we
more.
added in all this other stuff.
it's what does not get included within the forts, the walls.
I'm just saying, as you go out to the public to justify the decisions of boundaries, if the risk is to multifamily apartment, maybe res B on sewer and water, that's what I would include.
Okay.
Because then if you start saying, well, but we had more, so we just put this neighborhood in, but we left this neighborhood out, I feel like that gets
Sarah,
wonky.
so we are excluding all municipal property?
Not all municipal property, like we included the police station property because you have an apartment building on it with schoolhouse apartments.
Okay. We have to, the lines have to be on a property plot?
I mean, it also
As
covers
opposed to
streets.
A road.
Yeah, it covers
Through-
right away.
For example, you can, if you want to, let's say, create an isthmus between some areas, you can go through the middle of a.
We
of a lot.
could, yeah.
Okay. And, I would, okay. Have we included, the historic district?
Yes, it's on sewer and water, so yes, and it's all
I'm
in B
wondering, sort
res.
of given,
How far north does it go?
you know, is that
It
enough
goes
protection?
To the end of the sewer district, which is the field club.
What about charity things like the, historic society?
The only nonprofit charity we don't have covered is the Y, because we, up until now, just excluded the south of the Y neighborhood.
The historic district or the
Multifamily
historic
even if-
society really at risk? I would assume no.
I mean, never say never.
You never know.
Okay,
It's
okay, I
in
take,
B res, so,
I take your point. but-
2 families allowed.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so am I being told to get rid of all single family zoning?
That's my proposal.
So just do business commercial zones, apartment, multifamily, B res,
It's on sewer and water.
all of it is, so.
And how
Yeah.
much of our,
I don't-
8% is used by those?
We're gonna be
Maybe
under.
4% of it,
How
like
much?
4% total.
I mean, the application we heard last night is a perfect example of where the single family zone is gonna come into question.
But 830G,
830G can't require.
Trumps
it.
that.
That's what trumps it.
so
I don't know.
And the historical society, the police station, schoolhouse apartments are really not at risk.
what if they're redeveloped. Schoolhouse apartments.
Far less likely to be redeveloped than any single family
my
house.
point.
Any single family
Yeah,
house.
especially the police department.
Which is capable of having multifamily right now. So why are we getting,
Institutions that aren't selling.
Like, if you go lot by lot for a zone, like why go lot by lot
Yeah.
for the zone when you can just put
They're,
it over the whole?
everything I just listed, the police station and the schoolhouse apartments next to it, and the very expensive new construction next to it and it condo projects. South Avenue is far less likely to fall victim to this new law than Main Street. I can say that as a street versus a street, I
You wanna
know
cover
which
less
ones.
area.
So I'd rather, and you know what, I don't think that the behind the Y is particularly vulnerable. So if you ask me, I'll give you a list of vulnerable streets and not vulnerable streets. So I'd like to differentiate.
What is the harm in including those properties as part of this district?
Sorry?
What is the
Costing us our 8%. We're never gonna get to some of the streets we really want to protect.
But those streets are
Disagree.
single family residential, so you
It's not
can't
allowed under
develop,
current
you
zoning.
can't develop the type of housing that gets excluded from parking.
Yeah.
So you couldn't, on a single family 1 acre lot, you can't develop a 5 unit, you can't develop a 2 unit, you can't develop a 16 unit. That would be excluded from the parking regulations already, unless it's an 830G, and then this wouldn't apply anyways.
The only.
Those are
units-
already safer then.
Yeah.
all of the commercial zones are included, Main Street. Again, the only one that we can't fully include is the south of the Y neighborhood.
Which is a single family.
Yeah, so.
1 acre residential.
Yeah, so
I'm
I
not
don't.
terribly worried about that. It's not that walkable to.
And the parking, just to be clear, is, has to do with multifamily development.
You're
I was
less
gonna say
than,
that. It's the multifamily development with 16 units.
with less than
Yeah.
16 units, you can't require a
You
parking
can't require
minimum
parking, so you're trying to,
There's a-
unless you're in this
right,
zone.
unless you're in the zone. That's the purpose of doing this, right?
So you'd have to be allowed to have a multifamily development.
So
to
if
begin
it's,
with,
if
yeah.
it's single family, as Krista said, if it's single family, I don't see.
I
why you
wouldn't have
wanna-
thought
right.
Marshall Ridge was vulnerable until you pointed out that it had the potential to connect to sewer. And now I'm all excited to go over and see how many I could go redevelop on Marshall Ridge. I mean, seriously, like the cat's out of the bag now.
Redevelop in what sense?
Yeah, but John's gonna pull the 830G card.
No, they
We
said.
have a moratorium.
No.
We have a moratorium.
No, seriously, they just said that I could, you're saying not, 830G, it doesn't
830G
matter,
is-
but
830G is its own thing.
it is its own
But it would
thing.
have
Can
to be
happen
already for multifamily, so you couldn't just put multifamily in an area that wasn't already zoned for multifamily. So it has to be zoned for multifamily or commercial, and it has to be less than 16 units. You wouldn't be able to require parking unless it was part of this district. So if you put it in this district, you can require parking, but it's only for multifamily that's allowed in the zoning already.
So I don't have to worry about Marshall Ridge or behind the Y.
Not if it's a single family zone and the current zoning doesn't allow multifamily. It wouldn't be part of this parking requirement change.
So could I phrase it?
Recommend removing single family zones because I think it honestly almost spreads misinformation. Why are we including these neighborhoods in this zone if it's not at risk? Like, we don't want to send a message that we might change the rules and allow multifamily because that's not the intention.
true, too.
So
That's an excellent point. That's why, for me, it's important to understand what's the purpose of doing this. The purpose of doing this is so you can have some parking regulations for multifamily housing. We're not talking about single family.
Okay, I'll just do commercial zones, apartment zone, multifamily zone, B-res.
Yes.
Yeah,
And-
there you go.
Sarah, if you say, if we could, I think Emily's taking notes, we can incorporate that into the parking standards, a section on the traffic mitigation and conservation district that specifically relates to those zones and
That'd be-
explain how it works.
Right.
And then would there be a map of it also with the zoning?
There would have to be.
We're gonna have to do a map,
Be a map.
which Time Bond will do. And then, yeah, so with that, traffic mitigation district language that you're gonna include, we need a parking needs assessment definition.
Yes,
Yep.
and we've included that in the table, not the definition, but we've included references to it in the table.
Right.
But we can add that to the definitions.
Where is that?
It's in the definitions, commercial definitions, so not on the parking.
So even if you require for multifamily, even if you have this mitigation district, a developer can still commission a parking needs assessment that evaluates how much parking they think that their building actually needs, or how much a engineer who studies traffic thinks that their building actually needs. And if that's a lower number, then you're required to allow them to provide that lower number of parking than what is allowed by the standards in your parking table.
It's, by the way, it's an unfortunate part of state law we can't do much about. Normally, when you do that kind of parking needs study, it's one that's acceptable to the P and Z and reviewed usually by whoever you have as a parking consultant. But, in this case, it's, as Emily said, it's the state law.
So that's all under, you'll see that under multifamily dwellings, the minimum parking facilities. That is all in conformance with what Emily said is the state law, because the only places that you're allowing multifamily are within this traffic mitigation district. Therefore, this would apply to all of those except for the retail zone, where you have your own special exception, which is on the back of page 4 on the agenda. Parking in the retail zone is exempt with the exception of dwelling units with 2 bedrooms or greater, which shall require a minimum of 1 parking space per unit unless a parking needs assessment approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission results in a lower number of spaces. So that's something we talked about in the past.
We did talk about that
Yeah.
one your last session.
Yeah.
So we've put that in red.
So that special
That's-
zone.
Again, that's
covenant,
page 4 on the.
It's 9:30. I don't know how much longer everyone wants to keep going.
We're cooked
Um,
after that discussion.
Well, by the way, I think you made a lot of progress.
Yes,
actually, for
definitely.
us.
Yes, huge.
For us,
huge
you
progress,
did,
yeah.
the big decision.
We made
Yeah.
some decisions.
Yeah, we made some
We're
decisions.
very happy.
We'll come back, we'll get things back to Sarah.
Must be good.
The next meeting, which is not, it sounds far, but it's.
so I guess then, I definitely want to wrap up really quickly, but with the survey, I don't think anyone's really provided comments on the survey. Krista gave us comments, thank you. With that, I really don't think we should do a survey with where we're at. A thought I had with going back to the public hearing that we're going to have June 2nd, and we don't want a back and forth, we just want public comment. Maybe after the April public workshop, we do an online Q&A where people can submit questions that they have about the regulations, and then either myself or, with BFJ's help, we respond to those questions. And so instead of, survey, do you think, do you like X versus Y? It's just, okay, what are your questions? So then that way, if
When you say respond, you mean in writing
Yeah,
or at
in
the
writing.
public hearing?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then we post it all. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's,
And then
could
that
be
way,
like a FAQ.
hopefully, we don't have, people coming to the public hearing like, I'm sure it's still going to happen, but at least we can say, we did this. We could keep it open maybe even like a week or so after the public hearing and be like, hey, if you don't understand this, submit your question in this link
And keep those
here.
Q&As online so
Yeah.
that people can.
So people
refer to
can
them.
see it.
Yeah, like a frequently asked questions sort of thing.
Yeah, facts.
Yeah.
Frequently.
Wait, after the public hearing or after the public workshop?
After the public workshop, make this live instead of a survey, and then maybe keep it open until like a week after the public hearing, just in case we have people come out that are like, I don't understand this. What?
I like it.
That's one thing to think about.
Because we do have that June
For the
4.
public hearing, you do intend to close it. As you were
If this,
saying,
we
you'll
wanna make
stay
decisions,
for
right?
whatever it takes and then close the hearing that night.
Okay, so if keeping it open after doesn't, or sorry, I don't know what they're saying.
But should we also debrief the survey at that? Or not the survey, the Q&A, June 4?
We don't have to keep it open till after the public hearing. It was just a thought. If logistically it doesn't work.
My concern is just since we have the meeting with the full P&Z on June 4th after the public hearing, we'd probably want to talk about those question and answers we received, as well as debriefing the workshop then, right? So that we kind of are looking at all of the
Just
public
close it-
information.
Close it.
We
so
could
that
close
can
it
make
at-
Final
Close it
decisions.
as public.
The next day, even following the
Yeah.
public hearing. That way, if anyone has any questions right afterwards, they
Yeah.
can submit
can
them.
Okay,
submit.
yeah.
So that we at least have them all for
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
committee meeting or the commission meeting.
We do have copies of the draft survey if anyone wants one to take a look at.
You have them
We just
physically
said we're
here.
not doing it.
So are we,
So we don't need them?
Yeah,
Okay,
we
okay,
don't need them.
okay.
how does the commission feel about that idea?
I like your idea.
I like it.
Okay.
Okay, good. Good. Do the facts. All right.
At the next meeting, we'll also have a draft of the public workshop presentation because that will be the last time we meet with you before the public workshop.
Okay, sir, can we, before we
Yeah.
wrap up, can we recap what we need, what we still need to do for July 1?
We have some of it on the agenda here.
So there's nothing. Late, so don't quote me, but I'm 90% sure that there is nothing that we need to do that we haven't already discussed. Like everything is in draft
Commercial.
form.
Zones, parking, inclusionary zoning, definitions.
Yeah.
But we have a draft form. We don't have to do I lost my post-it notes. The village district design guidelines. We don't have to do them for July 1st. I mean, obviously they go
I
along
mean, they're
with the
still in
commercial.
effect.
Sign standards, we don't have to do for July 1st.
No.
I was just trying to like get everything that has to do with the commercial zones, but
Yeah.
I guess if it's not essential, it doesn't have to be done. Okay. All right.
Okay, and so, for, the definitions and the uses and whatnot, send me your comments in the next 2 weeks. I'll compile them. And we will go from there. If there are any, discrepancies, we'll deal with that as they come.
So is the goal for the public meeting in April for us to have? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I know the public's not necessarily going to read them line by line, but just so that we're internally aligned on what our recommendation to the public is, we need to have the drafts,
Draft, yeah.
that we all have collected.
Yeah,
I think, keep in mind, it's okay because it's a draft and we're trying to get public feedback, it's okay if you're not even 100% sold on a certain attribute, like that.
But
That's
we
why
can't go to
want
the public and be like,
feedback.
well, we're still considering A, B, C,
Yeah.
D, E, and F, like.
not for the hearing.
Something in writing
Yeah, they need.
to chew on.
And it may not feel like it, but I do think we're very close. Like
Okay.
we've vetted a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Tonight, I think you made some major decisions.
Thank you all for
Yeah,
your time. I know
yeah.
you had a late night last night too. so.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we just need to
we
approve
need to
the
approve the
minutes
minutes?
and
I'm
then
gonna move to approve the minutes from, I don't remember when.
It was from February 4th.
I
February
second the
4th.
motion.
I was trying to look at his agenda.
John Chris, second the motion.
Show of hands.
Show of hands.
Unapproved.
unanimous.
I wasn't
unanimous.
there,
Okay,
so
so-
It was unanimous. Yes.
Eric was with us
All right, is the meeting-
in intent. Meeting adjourned.
Yes, ma'am.